Truth Table News World, welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Glad that you guys are here. We've got one big banger of a drop for you guys today. Joining me today is Mike Lemberg, former Air Force, former Army, another veteran brother hanging out with us here today, man. I wanted to bring this guy on the show today because he's got a lot of good perspective and things like that. So I'll give you an intro to him here in a minute. We also have Ghost here with us today. And I was like fired up because man's busy. All right, man's busy. But guess what he brought tonight too? He's bringing the guns. And occasionally he'll have a, and then we'll applaud there because we know where this is going. Anyway, you ready? Here we go. So hope you guys had a great week. Bum on the bus, welcome. Joe G-Man is in here. People will be coming in here pretty shortly. So I'm just going to kick this off. All right, so Mike Lemberg, welcome to the Table of Truth. Hopefully it won't be the first nor the last time. I want to have you in the circle, man. So tell us a little bit about how you came across the channel, like going back in the day, and what made you change your mind and come over here to this microscopic platform.
Well, honestly, there's a lot of platforms out there, but you kind of start to notice that some of them may not be exactly the way that they should be. Not very, I don't know how to explain it. Clear and concise. Give a message that's consistent. So yeah, I ended up finding you, and I've been following you for about a year, actually, a little over a year. But I kind of crept from a distance. I didn't have a Rumble account until over the holidays, and we all know what that turned out to be.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And thank you, man. I appreciate that. And obviously, Ghost is here a lot, so I kind of feel spoiled in a bit because other people try to get him on and he's like, nah, maybe someday. But I get to have my brother on a weekly basis when possible, right? Because Ghost, you want to chime in?
Always good to be here with you. And the reason it's, well, number one, we're good friends. Number two, it's just easier to say certain things here and discuss them with you because, just you and one other are easier to be on and will give the time if I have to explain something at length. And that's what's good about it. And plus, the audience is great.
What you're really saying is I let you talk?
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to take a jab there. I'll leave it there.
Well, the podcast is natural feeling,
Yeah. I just, man, but thank you, man. Mike, I appreciate you being here, man. I really, really do. Hopefully your people will be popping in here pretty soon. At least I hope they do. And they participate in the chat unless they don't want to. And that's totally fine. I don't see any activity in the chat right now. So I don't know what's going on. I hope it's not a Verizon issue again, because that would really suck. But anywho's, we're just going to keep rolling. Eventually people will start popping in. At least I hope so. My stream is up. It's solid. It's going. We are streaming. We are simulcasting over on YouTube also as well. So those of you that want to go watch or listen over on YouTube, you can. Truth Table News World. You can just search for it, find me there, and join the live stream. But the main hub of operation is going to be here on Rumble, Truth Table News World. And we're going, hey, Ron Partain popped in the chat. What's going on, Ronnie? How you doing, bro?
Hey,
He's like, roll on. Yeah, we've got a banger here, man, tonight. Ron, we got to get together and do something, man. The three of us or the four of us got to do something. So I'm just going to put that out there. That's all I'm saying. See, people are starting to pop in here now. I'm telling you, it's the internet, guys. Shield Maiden Faith, welcome to the broadcast. Thank you for being here. Joe G-Man refreshed himself. Tennessee Woman. Ooh, I love the flags. MP20. rolling in here. See, folks are starting to come in here now. I don't know. My clock is 7:07. Okay, I get it. Y'all were finishing dinner. Depends. It's all good. So anyway, I'll just repeat it again. We've got Mike Lemberg here, former Army, former Air Force veteran, here sharing at the table of truth. And we're going to be covering some topics tonight. So I'll start off with you, Mike, really quick. So tell us a little bit about yourself, man, where you hail from, what you do, just whatever you want, whatever is permissible.
Yeah, I'm from central Minnesota. Currently, I'm a network engineer. My history goes back for active duty Air Force, and then I did the Army National Guard, and I am a husband and father.
Okay, awesome. How is you must be buried in snow right now? At least I hope not, but it's got to be colder there than here, because this morning I walked out of the house and the feels like temperature was 8. That was no good. And it was a little bit.
It's a little cool right now, but actually just a couple days ago, it was in the 40s. Last 3 winters, including this one, have actually been pretty mild, which has been shocking. So you'd think that there would be no grass showing, but there is.
Wow. Well, I'm sure it's drier cold up there than it is down here. Here, my problem is I don't have an issue with dry cold, but humid cold, I don't care how much you layer up, unless you have a bearskin hoodie like I got gifted by Santa Claus over Christmas. I put that thing on today. Nothing was coming through that material. Absolutely nothing. And I'm like, oh yeah. Again, another veteran-owned company, ladies and gentlemen, and they don't endorse me, right? I don't sponsor their stuff or anything like that. I mean, it's not as good as my 444 Media hoodie. I'm just putting that out there, and you can find that on the merch store, right? A little plug, sorry. All right. We're going to jump in, but first and foremost, let's get the bills out of the way like I always do. That just is the way things are. All right, folks. So if you notice up on your screen, you're going to see a QR code up in the corner there. You want to have access to all my socials, all the links, emails, shows, and all that stuff. Scan that QR code, download it, and your information will be there. My information will be there. It's a digital business card is all it is. That's it. It's no spyware. I'm not going to be checking on you or anything like that. So you're safe. So go ahead and scan the QR code. I'm popping that link there. If you guys want to do that, that would be great. Next, if you want to go ahead and buy, the Cuban here cup of Java, I would greatly appreciate it by simply going to buymeacoffee.com/TTNW, right? Because it's cold outside, baby. I say that all the time. I love my coffee too. And if not, if you guys want to go ahead and just donate to help out the channel, keep us running while we can, okay, before, I don't know, who knows, it goes dark and I get knocked off the air. Who the hell knows, right? It's just that kind of world. You can hit me up on Cash, https://cash.app/$ TruthTableNewsWorld. You can sponsor the show there, or help, or donate, or do whatever. I mean, it's all good, right? Also, if you want to go ahead and check out, 444 Media, you can go down on the lower part of your screen. You're going to see the shop button there. You can check out the latest and greatest 444 Media, the merch stuff, ball caps. I'm wearing one today, actually. This is the newest one. It's the Truth Table News World ball cap in white, with the logo there. Go ahead and check out the cap. There's a brand new t-shirt drop that I just did out there. Go and check it out. You're going to love it. I'll just give it away right now. It's government plus politicians equals FUBAR. And if you're a veteran, you know exactly what that means. If not, look it up. Okay. So, and it's got a really nice design that I put on that. So check out the merch. If you guys want to help out in the show, if you want to, there is also another button down just above the description there that says tip. If you guys want to donate to help out the show, but it's crypto. Okay. It's crypto because crypto's coming. It's coming soon. You can do that also as well. And all the help, donations, follow, share, subscribe, leave a comment, especially down below. Okay. Please, if you guys get value out of the stream today, please just drop a comment down in the down on the lower part of your screen there, and just tell us what you thought. All right, that would be greatly appreciated. All right, so let's go ahead and kick off. Ghost, you want to tell us? And before I jump into the monologue, let me get rid of that. I know that you shared something out there, and I'll go ahead and spin that up here real quick, and we'll take a look at it. But you want to give us a brief intro onto what the folks are going to be looking at?
What you're going to hear is something that I've been talking about for many years, and coming at that from more of the, let's say, the legal aspect and the historical and the state of this country and what people believe in this, let's say, temporal holding pattern or unreality that most live in. This will bring this, what this woman said, and it was sent to me by a very dear friend that I've known for a long time, and she's recovering from surgery. And I wish her well. But it's something that goes back about 15 years with her, that, and I don't want to mention the name right now. People would know it, but that's not important.
Okay.
What's important is what this woman says, and it touches upon, again, if you, each layer you get to in this very murky world, there is always a higher apparatus at work. And what she's speaking about is the active arm that has been working through Canada. And if you notice where all the idiocy is in this country, the majority of it began in states that touch or border Canada or are close to it. Oregon is close enough, but they're kind of sandwiched in between Washington and California. Couldn't be helped. I think they exiled all of their really wackadoodles to Oregon for some reason. But anyway, it's always been a liberal bastion type, limited thinking, limited hangout thinking and living space. But what she's going to tell you is really, and I've said basically what she said and more over the years about who and what the real, let's say, enemy to this country is. And there's a great deal of history behind it. But yeah, go ahead and play. I think this is 12 minutes everyone should hear.
Okay. All right. Let me go ahead and pop this up here on screen real quick. And let's go ahead and take a listen. Actually, the video is, it's 12 minutes long. Here we go. Oh, by the way, roll me a 5x5 if you guys can hear the audio really good on the in the chat there. I'd appreciate that. Here we go.
There was a time about 100 years ago when the United States military knew exactly who the real enemy was. And it wasn't Russia, and it wasn't China. It was Britain. In the 1920s, the U.S. military developed something called War Plan Red, a detailed contingency plan for war with the British Empire, with Canada as Britain's proxy. And right now, Donald Trump is dusting off a modern version of that same plan. Now, if you're watching the mainstream media, they're telling you Trump is recklessly threatening our alliances with his demands about Greenland. And Britain's premier foreign policy outlet, Chatham House, is now saying this about the United States. European leaders will remain concerned about Europe's ability to defend itself with a more unpredictable and even hostile U.S. And Chatham House also reported that in December, Denmark's military intelligence service classified the United States as a security risk for the first time. But here's what they're not telling you. Trump isn't threatening our alliances. He's ending 80 years of British control over American foreign policy. And he's doing it by reviving the strategic clarity that our military once had when they created War Plan Red. I'm Susan Kokinda. And for 50 years, I've tracked the British Empire's tactics and institutions. And I can tell you what you're watching right now is endgame. So if this is your kind of fight, please hit the like, share, and subscribe button to stay in touch and so we can spread our outreach. So today, I'm going to show you 3 things. Why NATO leaders are now discussing protecting Greenland from the United States. I'm going to talk about the forgotten War Plan Red, when America's military actually planned for war against Britain. And third, how Trump is taking on the monopolies at home. that these are the same British financial interests that shape the post-war world, and they also run the cartels strangling your housing and your health care. Now, if you're watching the mainstream media, they're telling you Trump wants Greenland for its minerals or its military bases, or it's about Russia and China. Well, there are elements to some of that, but there's much, much more. Look at what the foreign policy establishment is actually panicking about. The Atlantic Council, NATO's outpost here in the United States, just published a piece titled, "Trump's Quest for Greenland Could Be NATO's Darkest Hour." And Bloomberg reported that the United Kingdom and Germany are now discussing deploying NATO forces to Greenland to protect it from the United States. Let that sink in. NATO allies are discussing how to protect a NATO member from the United States, the supposed leader of NATO. Here's what Chatham House is really worried about. The cornerstone of NATO policy, Article 5, which triggers U.S. military support for NATO members. Here's what they say. The U.S., NATO's most powerful country by far, threatening to attack a NATO member state further damages Article 5's credibility. You bet it does. But it gets even more interesting. They continue, and they say, traditional alliance systems are reshaping daily, and European states might find they need support from other South American or other global South states in the future. And then the folks at Chatham House are very worried about the reports of potential U.S. cooperation deal on Arctic energy projects, and they got even more nervous in November with the 28-point peace plan, which includes joint Russian-U.S. plans for rare earth mineral extraction in the Arctic. Did you catch that? Europe may have to realign with the global South while the U.S. is working on Arctic economic deals with Russia. This is the British establishment admitting that Trump has broken their carefully crafted post-World War II Atlantic system. And here's the kicker about Greenland itself. The idea that Greenland belongs to Denmark is purely an artifact of imperial policy. Greenland didn't even get self-government until 2009, and it still has no power over its own foreign policy, currency, or defense. Denmark controls all of that. And according to the Danish media, those tensions recently broke out between Greenlandic and Danish parliamentarians, with one Greenlander accusing Denmark of neo-colonial methods. And opposition leaders in Greenland are now saying they want to negotiate directly with the United States, not through Copenhagen. So when Trump talks about Greenland, he's really talking about dismantling one of the last vestiges of European colonial control in the Western Hemisphere. And NATO, the military arm of that old imperial system, knows that if Greenland goes, the whole structure starts to crumble. Now, if you're finding this history eye-opening, if you're realizing there's a whole framework for understanding the British Empire's operations that you never heard before, you should go to the Promethean Action website and subscribe to our free newsletter. But let's dig deeper into why Greenland matters strategically. Everyone keeps saying it's about Russia and China. And yes, there are Russian and Chinese elements to this. But what if they aren't your main enemy? What if the real concern is Britain and Canada? Now pull out a map and look at the world from the North Pole down. Greenland sits right between Britain and North America. And of course, the northern part of North America is Canada. What's the significance of that? Think about this geography when we look at War Plan Red, because War Plan Red was a contingency plan for war with Britain, and Canada was the key proxy. This plan was approved and updated under the tenure of Navy Secretary Charles Francis Adams III. Now, names do matter in history. Charles Francis Adams III was not just a bureaucrat. He was the great-grandson of President John Quincy Adams, and he was the grandson of Charles Francis Adams Sr. Why is that significant? Because Charles Francis Adams Sr. was Abraham Lincoln's minister to Britain during the Civil War. He was the man on the ground in London, and he was the key figure who prevented the empire from diplomatically recognizing the Confederacy. This family understood the game. The grandfather spent the 1860s preventing the British from destroying the Union diplomatically, The grandson spent the 1920s preparing contingencies for a British attack on the US. They understood that the Republic and the Empire are incompatible forms of government. And for the last 80 years, we've forgotten that lesson. But Donald Trump is simply dusting off a modern version of War Plan Red, a war for political and economic sovereignty from empires and monarchies. Now, if you're finding this history eye-opening, if you're realizing there's a whole framework for understanding the British Empire's operations that you never heard before, you should go to the Promethean Action website and subscribe to our free newsletter. Because when you look at the fight from the standpoint of Republic versus Empire, everything President Trump is doing makes perfect sense. So use the link to subscribe. Because while President Trump dismantles the empire's rules-based order, he hasn't forgotten the domestic one. The same British financial interests that shaped the post-war strategic landscape run the monopolies right here in our own backyard. The empire doesn't just operate through monarchies and NATO. It operates through monopolistic cartels right here at home, protecting the financial interests that have strip mined the American middle class. And this week, Donald Trump targeted the two biggest burdens crushing the American people and especially young families: housing and health care. Look at Trump's Truth Social post. He announced he is immediately taking steps to ban large institutional investors from buying single-family homes. For the last decade, these giant institutional investors, the Blackstones, the Vanguards, the State Streets, they've been gobbling up single-family housing stock. They swoop in, outbid young couples and other Americans, and turn what should be a family's primary asset into a permanent rental stream for a hedge fund. This was fulfilling the WEF's playbook of turning us into a nation of renters, owning nothing, and supposedly being happy. But by forcing these institutions to divest, the administration wants to flood the market with supply and bring prices back down to reality. And the markets aren't too happy with Trump's announcement. Barron's reported that real estate funds slipped after Trump's announcement this week. But Trump didn't stop there. Federal Housing Finance Director Bill Pulte called this investor ban just the first punch. He said the second punch was the direction to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to purchase up to $200 billion in mortgage-backed securities to begin to drive down mortgage rates. The effect of both of these actions was to immediately begin to bring some more mortgage rates down below 6%. Of course, the other huge burden is the cost of health care. We discussed that in the Wednesday briefing when Trump challenged Republicans in Congress to join him in the simple revolutionary concept of no money to the insurance companies, give it directly to the American people. But actually, the biggest cartel of all isn't housing, and it isn't even healthcare. It's the one Eisenhower warned us about, the military-industrial complex. And in a series of blistering posts, President Trump demanded that major defense contractors end their stock buybacks and cap their salaries. Think about this. These companies took taxpayer money meant for defense and used it to pump up their own stock prices instead of building ships or fixing planes. He's demanding that they stop being financial institutions and start being industrial ones. And the president has said that this economic message is the one he's going to deliver at Davos in a week and a half. Break the financial parasites so the real economy and real families can grow. So let's connect the dots. Trump's moves on Greenland aren't about territorial expansion. They're about ending NATO as an instrument of imperial control and securing the Western Hemisphere against countries which still operate under monarchies, like Britain, Denmark, and Canada. The War Plan Red framework shows us that the American military leadership once understood who the real enemy was, and Trump is reviving that clarity. And domestically, from Wall Street's housing grab to the Pentagon's stock buybacks, Trump is dismantling the cartels that have turned American citizens into serfs in their own country. But if you understand the game, and the real game goes back centuries, You can see exactly what Trump is doing and why it terrifies them. And when you understand the game, you can fight it effectively. That's what we do at Promethean Action. So head on over to our website and join the fight. Paying memberships and contributions give us the resources to do more and reach out even further. Because we have to build this fight now in 2026. There's no better way to celebrate the 250th anniversary of our independence than by finishing off the British Empire once and for all. So this has been your Monday Brief. Thanks for watching.
Please take a moment.
I see a comment in there where it says that recall goes to low-key mentioning Denmark as a sus player in global effect. I have, because they are. You have the Royal Dutch, you have the Orange family out of Denmark, which is their royalty. Denmark is a constitutional monarchy. You have, but let's move over to Britain. You still have a strong monarchy throughout Europe, even in Germany, but they're very low key. They are not so much the major players. It's who they're in league with, and that is the banking structure, the central banking system, BIS. And it's BIS, again, I'll repeat this so I can move it on over to Bank of England. BIS is the central bank of all central banks located in Basel, Switzerland. What BIS is, it was what the reasons they'll give you that it was formed after World War I was to aid in rapid reparations from Germany. The Versailles Treaty did a pretty good number on Germany in many ways and set the stage for World War II. And both of these wars were planned wars. I'll say that again, they were planned wars. It's not only the Atlantic Council that she mentions, that's a cross-pond, let's say, private, they call it a goodwill organization, but basically it's for communications and discussions on how to maintain a hegemonic control over the US government and economy. 400 years ago, the royalty of Europe was worried that if this continent became populated, it would far outstrip Europe in power and because of its resources. Very simple. This thinking was in motion 400 years ago. Now, fast forward back to today, you have Le Cercle, you have the Pilgrim Society, you have several others that are less well known, but are back channel communications for SES and their cohorts in England, in particular the Square Mile. And that is, it's not the people or the country in general, it is the Square Mile, as is, say, the Vatican. Now, VIS are 3 buildings in Basel, Switzerland. Those 3 buildings come under UN ISO 3166-1 country code designation in the 900 series. You have 001 through 999. 900 to 999 are private and incorporated and unincorporated principalities, of which there are many on this planet. Monaco, City of London, Washington, D.C., Vatican. There's several in Russia that you never hear about. There's one in Brazil that you never hear about. They're all over the world. This is where the business of that sovereign supranational layer takes place. And the world has no access to that. When you step into one of those 3 buildings in Basel, you are in privately owned sovereign territory. They answer to no one and nothing on the planet other than their board members, of which they'll give you a public side board member listing, but they won't give you the private side with a capital P listing of owners. In those, you'll find the real names of who are running the entire global monetary system. Now I'm cutting through big chunks. I'm painting with a broad brush right now. Russia and its revolution were brought on by these very groups and let's say owners out of Europe primarily. You had several families here, and we all know their names. And then there are some that are not as well known who also contributed to the Russian Revolution, engineering it, financing it. And the same holds true for World War I and World War II. And the conditions were always set for those two conflicts. But the bottom line with all of this is it comes down to the entire global banking system, the central banking system. People know, finally, 15 years ago, you were laughed at. I remember one time telling my father at the dinner table, he mentioned something about the Federal Reserve. And I said, well, it's interesting that the Federal Reserve is neither federal, nor does it have any reserves, nor is it a bank. All it is an issuing arm for the central banking system that issues, say, about 13 billion a day for the government to operate. And how does it get that money back? It produces bonds. It has the right to create bonds. And you can buy these bonds in multiples of years, all the way up to 30-year bonds. They mature, you receive that money and its interest tax-free. This is why someone like David Rockefeller, when he was alive, only filed every year for $33,000 in income, because of the majority of income for these families is in owning not only a portion of these banks, but the bonds that you are paying interest on 30 years after the fact. Our kids right now are working and paying on bonds from a lot of them before they were born, that were issued to finance the country, operating under UCC globally, which is the law of bankruptcy. And then when you jump up to the next layer, you're getting into sovereign law. And Gordon and I can come on another time and really get in depth with that. We've done it many times before. It needs repeating, all of it. So what she's touching upon, I've always maintained and told people from the work I've done, we did not win the Revolutionary War. It was never over. And the first leg they finally got into our system of government was the 14th Amendment. It did not free anyone. It paved the way for corporate citizenship. You are all employees and wards of a corporation. The military is, in truth, and we can break down enlistment, cadet, or officer contracts that you sign when you go into the military. We can break them down for you and show you block by block where your name is spelled differently and why. Because you're not dealing with a constitutional republic anymore. It's only been lip service, whether it's the Supreme Court, because if you knew the nature of some cases versus their syllabus written, it's night and day, two different things. The Constitution, you try getting a judge to uphold your constitutional rights. They can hold you in contempt, fine you, or throw you in jail for 3 days. They don't have to. You don't have a contract with them. Why does every department, post 14th Amendment, now some that were pre 14th Amendment, why do they have DUNS numbers? Why do you find them listed in SEC filings? Only businesses do that. It comes down to the concept of the corporation, the corporeal, the corporate. All of that is related. And you take that back, it goes back to Rome. This is the reality. This is where things are elevating to finally, even though there have been those of us out there writing and saying things to try to drop this into the public consciousness for the last 15, 20 years or longer. And it's finally getting legs. And that's why I'm happy to see that this woman, I don't know where her background, I don't know what she's come from or what she's done, but for tracking the British Empire for 50 years rather, not bad. And you're going to hear more and more people like her, because we do not have a constitutional republic. We haven't had that for over a century, well over a century. And it was piecemeal.
And for the folks here in the audience, I noticed that there's a lot of new folks here in the audience. Thank you for stopping by and checking out the broadcast and the channel. Welcome on my behalf. If you have an interest in what Ghost just spoke about right now, okay, there is a series that we did a year ago talking about exactly what he's doing, and it came out of a 3 or 4 book series that I did on the constitutional republic, sovereignty, getting away from the corporation. I mean, we did deep dives into that, didn't we?
And not this for sale sovereign citizen information. That's all garbage. A lot of them are created, let's say, ops and psyops to get people to follow them. And I've always warned people, if you follow certain individuals, one of them's dead, his name's David Straight, they'll teach you enough to get you in trouble.
Yeah.
Because unless you know really what it's about, and you're not going to get it, because there are 2 things no one in the world has access to: highly classified documents, and more so than that, sovereign documentation of acts, treaties, alignments, sales, trust, all of this that goes on between them at that layer. You have no access to it. So when people think that the country operates and the world operates in a certain way, to a degree it does. It really doesn't. A lot of it is inverted and in the background. And unless you know what you're looking for, or have had access or have access to that realm, which I've been fortunate enough to have, and some very good people, you're not going to be able to get to the truth of what is really going on. They are aware of this, but you're talking about a monolithic global overlord that has to be. You don't beat them. You can never beat them at their game. They created this game hundreds of years ago and have refined it, obfuscated law umpteen thousands of times to where you think it's one thing, but it's not. And all of this is coming to light because we're not a sovereign nation. We're a business. And so is the British Empire, and so is Europe, and so is most of the world. Now, I'll say this because I don't want to hog all the time. I'd rather hear Mike talk than me. China. They've been used as a proxy. Again, in every country, you have many factions. Look at our own country. You have those useful idiots out on the streets creating trouble who are the lowest level operatives for what I'm talking about. And they don't even know it. They haven't a clue. They've gone through the brainwashing of the ignoble mind thinking processes that are easily created and foisted upon people, and they'll buy into it, young minds especially. Then you have the higher layers. What is behind the current administration is actually dealing with this. And I'll leave it at this. I mentioned it last time I was on, Armando. Mm-hmm. You have to change the game. Then you are master of the game, and no one can beat you once you create and have let's say, rule over the game. China has a bone to pick with the banksters. Let's say the more pragmatic and knowledgeable ones in China, they know this very well. Look at the opium trade that was foisted upon them. They've been taken advantage of many, many times by this banking system. So is Russia. But Russia is the only country apart from it. When Putin made his announcement that the, quote, Rothschild banking system has been nullified and kicked out of Russia. And he made a big speech. It was available, but nobody played it. And it was one of the most important things to hear in a long time at that time. I think it was back in 2017. And he basically said, if you try to reestablish yourselves in any way, we will basically deal with you good old-fashioned KGB style, because that's what he comes from. And he made it quite apparent. And what you're going to find is that China and Russia and several other countries have not been quite the enemy you've been led to believe. And that's coming. And that's part of the changing of the game. And it's going to be a very interesting year because it has to be done this year. And I'm particularly interested in what happens in Davos. And the advanced teams are already there.
Oh, they better
be. The largest contingent from this country that has ever attended is attending this year. And Trump is going to basically lay it out. Remember what he said about crypto. Remember what he said about a number of things. And everything, the one thing you have to take to the bank with this man is when he says it, he's telling you this is in the works. And it's taken a long time. There's been a lot of pushback. There's been the engineered release of a disease, COVID, that took everything back economically in a number of ways. But in the end, what it comes down to at that level is who has the biggest gun and is fucking willing to use it. And it's not necessarily the, quote, the US government. It is this administration and what is behind it. And people are going to see, it may take some, I'll leave it at this and then I'll shut up for a minute. It's going to take, yes, dramatic and traumatic to some events. And you won't know which side's doing it. You don't need to know. What you need to take away from it all is that it is for a reason, and the reasons in the end will nullify this globalist agenda for this country and this hemisphere, will end manufactured rivalries and enemies of the past, and a lot of that. And Europe is going to be left, unfortunately, in the dust. Good luck with your banking system then, because you're going to have to rush to Africa. And the Africans aren't going to want you any more than they want China or Russia because of how they've traditionally behaved down there. They've had to behave that way. We were behaving that way, and we were beating them at the game. But the days of confessions of an economic hitman are over. That will only lead to strengthening that globalist faction. They thrive on conflict and war and lies. Okay.
All right. Thanks for that, Ghost. Mike, what are your thoughts on what you saw in that video and, just Ghost's input on that?
Well, his input is amazing as usual. There's another lady as well that's on that show. I think it's called Promethean Action, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we've got some good stuff. But yeah, I think it harkens back to the whole trying to get a buffer zone from, obviously what I was just saying from the city of London. And I think that's exactly what Russia did back in the day when they sold us Alaska, is to get away from the crown with Canada. And
right.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to button up our own backyard to, buffer ourselves from them, to get out of this trap that we're all in.
Yep.
Yeah, because it's going to be an endless cycle of more wars, and it'll be economic ups and downs. All of this is engineered, all of it, and you're going to see. And I'm saying this. I said it the last time I was on your show, Armando, and I'm saying it again. You're going to see a realignment of nations that you didn't believe could exist. And the reasons for it are we're creating the new game. And I'll name what my analysis so far says will be in it: US, Japan, South Korea, Singapore, Russia, China, India. Those are your primaries, and possibly Brazil. It'll negate the necessity for BRICS, rather, and it will at the same time completely cut off the central banking system, the European central banking system that has infested the world. Remember, the IRS is the IRS here, but it is a global organization. They're the bagmen, they're the collection arm for these banks who have given themselves the right to create money out of thin air daily. In BIS, there are certain quantum systems that have been running since the late 90s. How do I know? The man who headed BIS for many years, from 87 to 2005, when Dick Cheney ran a shitty operation against him and took him out of power, but couldn't take his signatory or sovereign trust fiduciary responsibilities from him. And he had to get a new address, finally, in 2014. And he was a friend of mine, and he was a good man. He wanted these changes many years ago. The world wasn't ready for them. And they simply removed him from power. And he technically still has signatory power. And there are a number of people that most believe are deceased or not. I'm not going to name names. You'll see that in the future, when it is safe for them to, let's say, reemerge. But it's a dangerous game. They're not beyond. Their threat is always another engineered bioweapon, which they will use. A binary system, which I said in mid-19, 6 months prior to that disease being released. I was aware of it. And in private discussions with other people that work every day in certain agencies, let's say, it was going to be a speed bump. It wasn't going to be that bad. I said, well, the actual pathogen won't be that bad, but you're looking at a binary soft kill. It's exactly what it was. And that's their biggest threat, to do that again. They're not going to get away with a fake alien invasion. That's just beyond, let's say that's been neutered.
Yeah.
They may try it, but they're not going to get away with it. But there are just as many other, let's say, black swans or false flags that can come out of nowhere against it. But the basic stance now is, go ahead, make our fucking day. Because they're not going to play. They're going to take out the perpetrators this time. You couldn't last time. It wasn't time. And 26, it has to happen now. It'll enable things, I don't know, maybe martial law or, Insurrection Act would enable the ability to clean up the voting. And people need to understand it's easier done than said, because we have been technically in a state of emergency. That is why the executive branch has gained so much power, and it was to be able to be used against us in these times. thank God for another faction that said, no, we're not having it. And this was been going on for over 70 years now. It's finally built to its crescendo. They want their Agenda 2030. It was supposed to be Agenda 2000, then 2012, then 2021. Now it's 2030. 2026 can kill it for good, because most of the real power of the administrating of what other nations actually do, believe it or not, actually comes out of the UN. The true nature of the UN is not known. It will be known shortly enough. And as far as I'm concerned, that building can fall over into the East River with everyone in it. I don't give a shit. It's just a figure of speech for any little Nazis out there who want to claim I'm endorsing something like that. It's a figure of speech. Learn what that is. But
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
I think the UN and NATO need to go away, to be honest with me. They weren't built on good intentions.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But it's antiquated. It's time for that to end. Going through some comments here in the chat from let's see, Lord Snooty 4039. Three things. I'm just going to read them off there. Over from the YouTube side. Says the alignment with USA and Russia is because Putin has a copy of the Epstein files. That's one. Next one is, don't you just long for-ban America that believes in international rules and decency? It's a question. And then the other one is, why is the USA run by the war criminal Netanyahu? Aren't you guys sick of polishing his knob? Well,
those are incorrect assertions. We're not run by Netanyahu. The Russians have data, certain data way beyond Epstein files. Why do you think that is? Now, they're not blackmailing anyone. They may help with cleanup. They may be able to get a job done that's dirty, that we don't want to then essentially attach to us.
Right.
Okay. You have more of an ally there than you are led to believe by the ones who own the banks, own the press, own your film industry, own your publishing industry largely, not completely, and own the vast majority of internet outlets. So your picture of the world is made from that. My picture of the world is talking to people in positions, discussing matters, advising, rendering opinion. Simple as that. And it's on a very quiet basis. That's where my information comes from, and the intelligence world. Friends of mine who are still in it, 30 plus years. And you want to know if it's real or not? 3 of my friends from that world are dead in the last 2 years, and 1 just went on a hospice because he was hit with what they call the Havana syndrome. Actually, it was originated in Moscow back when tensions were tight because they were defending themselves. They shouldn't have been using that on embassy personnel, but they were trying to get the intel people. And those old rivalries are still there, but not as strong, because even they are not there for your interests. Most of them aren't. Like Robert Steele used to say, 95% of the people in these agencies are good people in a bad system. And I can attest to that. They are very good people. Some of the best people you'd ever want to know or meet and have by your side. But they are in a bad system, a system that largely most of your intel agencies, Europe and around the world, are private detective agencies for the fucking bankers, the ones who own everything, including you.
Yeah. Last comment here from over on YouTube, guys. Lord Snooty 4039 says, at least you speak the truth, Rupert Murdoch and tech bros feeding us all Trump's message. Look, I'll take that one. It says people in system will just obey orders. Correct. Yeah. And you know what? And from the media side there, Lord Snooty,
To a degree.
to a degree, right? All you're going to get out of cable news, I don't care if it's Fox, you know, whoever the hell it is, you know, mainstream, whatever, they're only going to feed you 80% of what is perceived to be real because they are being handled and they're being told what to report. The 20% you're not going to get, which is what actually matters. That's why alt media exists. That's why this channel exists, is to siphon through all the bullshit. Especially like, and I'm just going to come out and say it. And I'm, you know, I have I'm on X a lot, but I will be honest. I will tell you, X, in my opinion, is a cesspool for misinformation and propaganda. You got to siphon through a lot of stuff out there on X and find actual credible sources, okay, that you can actually take that as this is real. The rest, it's PSYOP. I am telling you, Americans today are being PSYOPed 6 ways from Sunday, and it's all part of the plan. And we said it here on this platform. We said it in November of 25. Once January 26 comes to fruition, the violence is going to escalate. The propaganda is going to escalate. The misinformation is going to escalate. And you're going to see a lot more violence. And you're going to see this escalate on a weekly basis. Take what happened yesterday, for example, right? DEFCON 4. Oh my God. The military is launching, American jets, fuelers, tankers, whatever. They're all going to bomb the hell out of Iran because they're going to hang people, right? And then it's like, you got to save this guy. They're going to hang him tomorrow. They're going to execute him. He's 20 some odd years old. This is all coming from Iranians, but you don't know if they're with the IRGC. You don't know if they are actually good people. You don't know any of this shit. Right? Trump comes out and what does he say? Nope, not going to let them hang. We're going to help you. Help is on the way. Help is on the way. I'm going to tell you what really that was. That was another PSYOP. Okay? We weren't going to bomb Iran. We weren't going to, invade them like we went into Venezuela. No. What we did, and Ghost, you and Mike, correct me if I'm off key here. Okay? Correct me if I'm off key here. What that entire operation was about just yesterday was, oh shit, Trump is serious. He's going to bomb us. He already did it once. He's going to do it again. And the Israelis are in there also as well. Air quotations. They're being saved for last. I'll leave it there. Okay. They're going to bomb the shit out of us. No, what they did is they took notes. Oh shit. This is where their missiles are hidden. This is their movements when an emergency is deemed an emergency, and they're taking notes on exactly what their moves are, what's being moved from one area to another. They're looking, Bennett's looking at the money of the wire transfers going out of the country. They're writing all this stuff down. Why? Because once you have that data, if there is a need to actually go in there and hit these people, we already know what their moves are in current times. No one's talking about this though. Right?
Well, the regime is in a panic. And how many years ago did I say the biggest threat to the regime in Iran is the Iranian people? They are an educated, they had been, you could almost consider them westernized years ago, back in 78, 79. Yes, they were under a harsh regime with a harsh secret police. They rebelled against that, got something worse.
It's always,
and that was engineered. That was a Middle Eastern engineering job, by the way. And they had to have their boogeyman. Well, the Iranian people are sick and tired of it. They are Persian.
They're Persian.
Majority.
They're not Islamic. They speak Farsi, right?
They're not Bedouin, and they're not to the east of them, Pakistan, India. They are their own people. And if you know anything about the history of Persia, it's always been a very, let's say, homogenous and powerful entity when it set its mind to something and was never really conquered to the degree that history would tell you. And they will take care of it. They know thousands will die. They already have. And that's the price these people are willing to pay to stop all the bullshit and being used as a pawn.
Let me
A
tell you something.
created pawn.
Let me tell you, it takes some really, really big cojones for the Iranian people, not the regime, the people. They're good people. They really are. Okay. To go out in the public with no weapons at all, maybe some gasoline or some lighter fluid, you know, some matches and stuff, and start burning shit down. But it takes a lot of cojones to go out there in the street and face AK-47s and other weaponry and get massacred. Okay. Most countries in that situation would not do that. Cuba as an example. There you go. How do I know? From there, done that for the new people here that don't know. Okay. And we're going to be diving into that. Lord Snooty 4039 over on YouTube. Thank you for the sub. I appreciate it. And thank you for the comments. And yes, you are correct. Nothing is about doing what's best for humanity, children starving, etc., etc. Of course, every regime that is socialist, communist, or you know, Islamic,
Totalitarian.
I'm going to say it, is it's always about them. It's the people are the one that suffer. The kids, the teens, the young people, the old, the elderly, they're the ones that pay the ultimate price. We know this. Okay. And that's why we are here talking about what we're talking about, because me personally, for example, I am currently watching here in America today a replay of a movie that I participated in long, long ago. And I'm going to be diving into that here into the monologue so we can kick this off, because we got some really good stuff ahead. So over on the YouTube side, Lord Snooty, thank you, man. Appreciate the commentary and the input.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. So here we go. Mike, any final comments before I go into the monologue?
Oh yeah, I mean, regarding going after, you know, Iran in any form or fashion, or attempting to assist the people that are trying to free themselves, it wouldn't take much from us. I don't think we would have, you know, we wouldn't have to have boots in the ground. I think well-placed bombs would give them more than ample support to be able to do what they need to do. I think there's enough of them to overcome, you know, what they need to take out to free themselves. So,
all right. Yeah. Excellent. That's why I love having veterans on the show, man. We know what's going on. Appreciate it. Anyway, okay, so as you guys may well know, the ones that have been with me for a long time, and for you new people that are here tonight, thank you again for stopping by. Appreciate it. My specialty, my background, Cuban, okay, military vet, obviously. I did it the right way, the legal way, right? Anyway, my area that I'm diving in heavily is in Central South America. Okay. Been focusing very, very heavily on that. Okay. And getting a lot of good information coming from there. So what I want to tell you guys about is, yeah, we went into Venezuela. We did what we had to do in Venezuela. There's a lot more stuff involving Venezuela that no one here and no one is talking about. First and foremost is what's going on behind the scenes. We're going to touch a little bit on that tonight after I get through with the monologue here. We're going to be playing a video that was, I have access to be able to get it. And it was the okay, that Laura Logan is going rogue with Laura Logan that talks. She has a former CIA officer on board who's going to basically granulate, okay, what's really, really going on in the Western Hemisphere, specifically with Venezuela, and how that ties into America and how far down the deep state really, really goes. Now, keeping that in mind, next week, I'm going to give you another video from her, okay, that she has a Venezuelan guy who's been a U.S. citizen, who's going to be a U.S. citizen here pretty soon, who basically has worked for 2 decades with our interior, okay, exposing what very people know very little of, because we know about the Mexican cartels, we know about, you know, MS-13, we know about, you know, Tren de Aragua, we know about all that. But very few people know about El Cartel de los Soles, okay, which is now starting to gain a little bit of ground out there in the public sector. When you guys find out what is really, because I'm exposing that, okay, when you guys find out what really Cartel de los Soles is all about, it's going to rock you to your core, and how deep and how long those tentacles revolve and wrap around the entire planet. It's going to blow your mind. But Trump is playing six-dimensional chess, and he is 3 steps ahead of everybody when it comes to this. Okay? And I'm just going to drop this little nugget right here, right now. The current sitting president, who was the vice president in Venezuela, her brother, Jorge Rodriguez, and 2 other gentlemen, okay, their days are very numbered. Why do I say that? Tomorrow morning, Maria Corina Machado is going to the White House to meet with Trump. Okay? Number 1. Edmundo Gonzalez, who was elected fairly president, okay, is currently right now in Spain. He's currently on pause. Why? Edmundo Gonzalez has the heart and the minds of the actual true Venezuelan military, who put down their arms, okay, and would not fight, arrest, or you know, massacre the Venezuelan population. They said, nope, we're not doing it. These are our people. We're not going there. What did Cuba do? Cuba is a very dangerous foe. Listen to me carefully here, okay? A very dangerous foe. They operate all of Venezuela's intelligence. They supply Venezuela with special forces, La Avispas Negras, which is basically the black swans, wasps that formerly used to be the black berets, Las Boinas Negras. All right. So what they did is, when the uprising and they stole the election, all right, Diaz-Canel, the sitting president, and of course with Raul, you know, Castro, basically dressed their special forces unit, 2 of them, in civilian clothes, put them on commercial airliners, flew them to Caracas. When they got there, they dressed themselves in Venezuelan military uniforms, went out into the public, started arresting, shooting, massacring people. That's reality. That's the truth. That's how that went down. Okay? Just keep that in mind, and I'll tell you how deep and how far that goes, but that'll be on next week's episode, so make sure you follow me on Discord for updates on that, because that's where I post all of my stuff. Links are in the description, or scan the QR code. You can get links to Discord also as well. But what I want to talk to you guys right now is the advantage that America and the Western Hemisphere is going to have by liberating Cuba. And trust me, now that they have the oil cut off, very little assistance from Russia because of the blockade, the Chinese are giving them extremely little assistance by any means or you know, or ideas. And Mexico also falls into that book also as well. Very, very little help. They're basically on their own. Their power grid is annihilated in the entire island. Okay. Their blackouts are now extremely long during the day, except for who? The ones that are in charge. Again, it's always the regimes at the expense of the people, right? So I'm just going to give you today, we're going to dive into one of the more provocative what-if scenarios in modern geopolitics. What strategic advantages would the United States gain if it were to liberate Cuba? Or take the extraordinary step to eventually incorporate it as an additional U.S. state, not a territory like Puerto Rico, because we don't want to be taxed 6 ways from Sunday, okay? And have poverty spreading throughout the land, because, again, it's democratically controlled over in Puerto Rico. So no, it's either statehood or it's going to be a proper rise up to be just as good as America is. Me personally, if that can't happen, and I'll explain that here, yeah, I'm all down for a statehood. Why not? Especially when you're 90 miles away from Key West, right? Let that sink in. But we'll talk geography, history, economics, security, energy resources, and yes, oil. And I will pause after I get, down this thing to get feedback from Ghost and also from Mike as well, just to get their take on this. All right. So, but first, this isn't an endorsement of war or annexation. It's an intellectual exploration of strategic factors, the hows and the whys, rooted in data and realistic assumptions. Let's go with number one, and then I'll pause, right? So number one, geographic and security advantage. Let's start with geography. Cuba lies just 90 miles south of Florida, across the Straits of Florida. Its location has made it a centerpiece of U.S. foreign policy since the 19th century, from the Spanish-American War through the Cold War and into today. Geographically, Cuba is a natural strategic asset. Ghost?
Well, its position, let's say even some of the agricultural resources that could be developed, make it, and tourism, for example, travel. There's so many things that Cuba could serve in a positive way that it's, you know, it only makes sense in time to bring that regime down. And I think most in the Western Hemisphere would be glad that that was done. Because when Ortega back in April and May, when the students demonstrated and then the population demonstrated. Why? Because Ortega promised free and open elections, that if they didn't want him in, they wouldn't have to be in. Well, they didn't get it. Ortega became exactly what he fought against back in the 80s with the Contras and Sandinistas and all of that mess that went on then under the Reagan administration. And if people really knew the nature of the guns for hostages, et cetera, they wouldn't have been so pissy about it. But you did have one individual involved with that, the unindicted co-conspirator. That is Stefan Halper. He's, by the way, protected by England, City of London. And he's, as far as I'm concerned, the modern day Benedict Arnold to this country. You'll find him in Le Circle, Atlantic Council, Children's Society, etc., and in several organizations there, as well as being a professor, I believe, at Cambridge. Can't remember if it's I think it's Cambridge. Mm-hmm. Anyway, Cuba has served its purpose historically for the old model of conflict and tension that fed the in feeding the military industrial establishment here. We were doing their work, the globalists' work for them in breaking this country down and in other strategic areas that were necessary, but not to the extent and handled the way they were handled. We could have steamrolled Vietnam if we wanted to. We didn't have to spend the last 20 years fucking around in the sand. But the oil interests, you know, until we transition to technologies that already exist, oil is there. It is the basis of all things. All things. Every product in your house, every medication you take virtually, every plastic item, every non-plastic item, all of it comes, oil touches everything, everything. Until we can transition from that, it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
However, the reserves that we possess, for example, we don't need to go outside of our own territories. I think Cuba could serve well in that respect. I'm sure there's reserves there that have been untouched. Who's going to touch? Who's going to develop them? When you have a totalitarian regime and generations of people who know nothing but poverty and servitude and lack. Now, these are all models of what kept globalism growing, what kept the engine going for this eventual conflict that we're in now. That is globalism versus sovereign nations. Humanity is not ready for globalism. It's just a simple fact. They're not ready for it. If you're going to get it, the only way you can do it is impose it. And the only way you can impose it is through violence
Yep.
and the further eroding of rights, traded for privileges, etc., on down the line. Cuba, I'm sure most of South America would like to see Cuba a free and prosperous nation. It could be turned around in a decade, literally a decade, with many interests that would be able to do what they do best in Cuba. We need to clean up. And going back to Nicaragua, for example, you didn't see anything but a few articles in the New York Times, and they didn't mention this one thing that I'm going to tell you. And how do I know? The man that they chased out of the country, who was the Trump of Nicaragua. His first name is Jorge. We'll leave it at that.
Mm-hmm.
Who created a refugee camp in Costa Rica for the tens of thousands who were fleeing Nicaragua because they were identified as agitators. They didn't tell you about the tens of thousands that were imprisoned, raped, murdered, executed on the street. They didn't tell you when they broke up those two separate demonstrations, after photographing digitally as many people as they could, and there were at least 300,000 in the one demonstration. When the snipers were given the order to fire, they didn't fire at adults, they fired at their children. They fired and murdered several hundred children to disperse the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't see that all over that would have been all over at one time.
At one time, not today.
Many years ago.
Yeah.
So Ortega, remember the money that was frozen in the New York Fed from Nicaragua?
Mm-hmm.
That was Jorge's $580 million. That was his money that they had put in the name of their son, their one son. And the New York Fed said, no, you put it, it came through our system, we're freezing it. And we're saving it to give back to that man you took it from, who has zero political ambitions. How do I know? I talked to him. Several of us talked to him, and then we had 3 different agencies crawling up our ass the next week. And
Yeah.
it was, no, you guys, we know what you're doing there, and that's fine. But don't make it worse. And don't, and one particular group within one agency was trying to embarrass the president with that situation. Didn't happen. Didn't happen. Because a few of us said, no, here's the information. Boom. These things are happening all the time, and they're not telling you about them. All the time.
Mike, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I'll just leave it at that because it's a.
Oh yeah, we can do another show on that.
It's a deep
Yeah, I still got to play that 1 hour video. Mike, talk to us, bro. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, regarding Cuba, these guys are what, 60 miles away from our Florida coastline?
90
My
miles.
wife-
90 miles.
90 miles? Okay. The whole thing is we've had a problem with them for the longest time, and in reality, there's an opportunity for trade. There's opportunity, just like Ghost said, for tourism. I mean, we should be, everybody in this hemisphere, we should be aligned with and be able to conduct business between one another instead of what it has been for the last 40 years plus. And I just want to highlight too, there was a comment in there about veterans promoting war. I'm not promoting war. I mean, I don't think these guys are either. I think when we talk about Iran and assisting them in liberating themselves, we're not involving ourselves in war. So I don't quite understand that.
Yeah, I saw that comment. I didn't get it either, but it's coming from YouTube. So
the last
Right.
ones promoting war are veterans. Trust me.
yeah,
Exactly.
we don't want war. That's the hell no. There's no way there. So I don't know where that came from. But anyway, yeah, you touched on a good point there, Mike. Tourism. There was a time, those of you that are old enough, there was a time, at least my parents would tell me about this, where there was a ferry service that used to leave Key West, okay, and go to Havana back and forth on a daily basis. And it was a 2-hour ride, a boat ride, pretty powerful ferries. Tourism is key here. the amount of money that could be generated on tourism only for America. And let's not forget the cruise ships and the cruise line industry. Okay. Yeah, we'll make that another Western port, you're right, to go in. We'll go to Jamaica, we'll go to, Belize, places like that, but let's make Cuba another one.
In the
That
early part of
alone
the 20th
itself-
century, Armando, there was a train that left New York and would go all the way to Havana. How did it
Mhm.
get to Havana? They had the rail line going
Yep.
down to Key West that was suspended above water. And then they would put the cars on ferries, and that train would wind up in Havana. You'd be in a sleeper car, and then a few days later, you're in Havana. I mean, it was that kind of thing then. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, HR Rat here says, the Crossroads says, nobody wants war, but we don't want innocent people that want their country back killed. Oh, of course. Yeah. Hey, look, listen,
Nobody avoids collateral damage like the U.S. military. Nobody.
let me tell you
And
this.
no,
Do you
nobody's
not
as
think for a
capable.
moment, my family, that we were forced to leave our country for fear of death after my grandparents were executed against a barn by Mr. Che Guevara? Okay. Yeah, that's right. You heard right. Okay. A lot of Venezuelans that are actually here that are good people that they had to flee their country because they were starving to death. They're being executed. They were being held in prison, right? And they had the opportunity to leave and they left. Do you not think that once Venezuela, Cuba, or whoever else is under communistic rule, if they become liberated and they get their country back, do you not think they're going to go back home? Hell yeah, they're going to go back home. I'll tell you this. Cuba ever becomes liberated and it's under either U.S. control or it's under their control and it's safe to go down there and travel, I'd go back. I'd get myself a nice, I'd go back and, set myself a little cabin somewhere out in the country where I grew up in, right? I'd go back there and visit. Hey, we would make cigars great again too. Let's think about that. Yeah, gotta have them. Yeah, seriously. Oh yeah, back and forth. But you are correct in your comment, right? The killing of innocents is completely and totally unacceptable. Unacceptable. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you look like. I don't care what your skin color is. I don't care where the hell you're from. It's unacceptable. My beef is with radical regimes that are in power. That's my thing. Anyway, so let me continue here because I'm running a little bit behind on time.
There's a time to use force. And
There is.
Simply put, you have to. It's the nature of the beast.
And unfortunately, true freedom is paid with one thing: blood. Violence will happen if you really want freedom. And unfortunately, the innocents pay the price in every single conflict. And that is the downside to it. It just is. Anyway, so let's continue here. So control of Cuba would give the U.S. dominance over the Straits of Florida and the approaches to the Gulf of America, right? Choke points critical for maritime trade and military mobility. It would remove any hostile power projection within short striking distance of U.S. mainland, historically a huge factor in U.S.-Cuba tensions. It would eliminate Cold War vestige, where rival powers, notably Russia and China, have sought influence through military or economic partnerships with Havana. Experts note Cuba's strategic value precisely because of its proximity to the U.S. and growing interest from other great powers. In a world where great power competition is ascending, especially in the Western Hemisphere, any perception of foreign military presence in Cuba is seen as a strategic threat by Washington. That is true. Number 2, political and economic integration benefits. If we imagine a liberated Cuba that transitions to U.S. influence or even eventual statehood, Cuba could integrate into the U.S. economic systems, expanding trade opportunities in agriculture, as Ghost mentioned earlier, tourism, as Mike mentioned, technology, and what? Pharmaceuticals, right? It could provide labor, new markets, and investment flows. It could accelerate democratization, human rights improvements, and economic liberalization, but only if pursued with policies that respect Cuban sovereignty and people's aspirations. Okay, so we're not talking about nation building, nation takeover. It has to be approved by the people. If the people say, no, we want independence, we do not want to be part of a state of America, great. No issues, right? As long as you get the right administration in there that will look after the people and not keep them enslaved under a communistic system as currently exists. So this kind of integration would also mean eliminating decades of embargoes and sanctions that have isolated Cuba economically and diplomatically, lifting barriers to business and capital. However, the scenario involves complex diplomacy, political consent of Cubans, and legal frameworks not addressed by any simple liberation plan. The idea of annexation or statehood would require massive constitutional, legal, and ethical work. Okay, let's just put that into perspective here. Number 3, economic and resource advantages. Here we go. Oil and more now. Let's talk about natural resource wealth, starting with Cuba's hydrocarbon potential. The oil potential. Cuba's known domestic oil production today is modest, around 50,000 to 80,000 barrels per day. From onshore and shallow water wells, and the island still relies heavily on imports for its energy needs. But undiscovered resources are what draw strategic attention. A 2025 U.S. Geological Survey assessment found an estimated mean of about 4.1 billion barrels of technically recoverable conventional oil in the North Cuba Basin offshore, plus substantial natural gas estimates. Okay? Other estimates go higher. Industry figures and Cuban sources have suggested possibilities up to 9 billion barrels or more, and even claims, not independently verified, of up to 20 billion barrels offshore. Here's the key nuance. Most of these are exploration estimates, not proven reserves. That means potential resources, not guaranteed economically recoverable oil, and significant barriers remain. Deep water drilling is expensive, technically complex, and risky for ecosystems, right? You got to be careful with that too. So if those oil and gas resources were confirmed and could be safely and efficiently developed, they could move Cuba from a net importer of petroleum to an exporter, provide energy security for both the island and potentially for U.S. markets, generate jobs, investment, and infrastructure development. Now, expand U.S. companies' access to strategic energy resources under U.S. regulatory oversight. But again, this is potential and subject to technology, global oil prices, capital investment, and environmental safeguards. Other natural resources, this is where it gets good. So beyond oil, Cuba has major mineral deposits, including nickel, cobalt, iron ore, and more resources critical for electrical power plants, which are drastically needed. Tech industries and industrial metals supply chains. Some experts note Cuba has among the world's largest cobalt and nickel reserves, okay, which could also, help with the manufacturing of chips. Think about that, right? So these industries could tie into broader U.S. supply chain security, especially for minerals essential to, here we go, high-tech manufacturing. Now, number 4, strategic power projection and alliance patterns. Cuba today remains politically aligned with leftist governments and external partners. U.S. removal of the communist regime or a negotiated transition would impact the U.S. ability to deter foreign military footholds so close to home, regional security architecture in the Caribbean and Central America, influence among nearby nations that track U.S. policy towards Havana. Again, the ethical and legal paths to any such transformation would need to abide by international law, self-determination, and multilateral diplomacy. 5, realities and obstacles. A responsible analysis must recognize legal international constraints. Annexation or forcible incorporation of a sovereign nation would violate international norms and invite global condemnation. Okay, your nation building. So Cuban self-determination. The Cuban people's right to choose their own future, including political and economic systems, is paramount. Economic uncertainty. Cuba's current energy infrastructure struggles. It imports most of its oil. It consumes and suffers frequent power outages tied to fuel shortages, energy development challenges. Offshore deep water exploration and production are costly and require technology and investment that Cuba currently lacks. Not every estimated resource volume becomes commercial oil. So basically, in summary, guys, strategic location near U.S. soil means Cuba will always matter in defense and geopolitics. Economic integration could unlock new markets and growth, but requires consent, legal frameworks, and mutual cooperation. Natural resources, especially oil and critical minerals, are promising, but not yet proven commercial resources and extraction would face technical complexities. Okay. Human and legal ethical factors make any idea of liberation or annexation deeply complicated, which it is. So the question you want to ponder is this. And this is a question basically for Mike and Ghost here, just to, and the chat, of course. The question is this: could the U.S. benefit strategically from a different relationship with Cuba? The answer, in my opinion, is a qualified yes. But that path to any such future is neither simple nor unilateral. All of this sounds promising, doesn't it? Right? There is one huge issue that we must be addressed first, and that issue is right here in our republic. All right, and the video that I'm going to be playing from and reacting to over the next hour will leave you shocked. So our main focus at the moment is not really geopolitical, but instead it's inside Washington. Thoughts, feedback? Mike, let's start with you.
Well, yeah, we would benefit with a different relationship with them, obviously. But of course, I think getting to that road is going to be, not easy, but it's worth it, in my opinion. Absolutely.
All right, cool. Thank you for that. Ghost?
No, I would agree with that. It wouldn't be easy for a number of reasons that we can imagine. They're not exactly, let's say, on the world-class level as far as diplomacy, etc. And that could be brought up to speed. But again, I think that would take the better part of a decade. But
you are correct on that, because guys, here, for those of you in the audience here, you're basically looking at a nation. You're basically looking at a nation where the clock stopped ticking in 1959. Think about that for a minute. You're talking almost 70 years of living under a communistic system. 70. Okay. How many generations? How many generations have fallen into the mindset, the philosophy of there is nothing else, only this? Lots of them. Lots of them are here today. And they don't have good intentions for this country, because they're bringing mischief, they're bringing corruption, they're bringing fraud, they're bringing that type of communistic element already embedded in their philosophy, and they're applying that here in our country, which I completely disagree with, by the way. Okay. So think about that. Cuba basically right now needs everything between a toothpick and a satellite, and everything in between, because everything is weathered, everything is old, buildings are crumbling to the ground, people are dying because of that, because their buildings or houses are falling on them. All right. They bring water to the public in water trucks because the water is toxic as hell. All right. Mask mandates are still being enforced, and it's not because of COVID. It's because of malaria, because of regular common diseases, other diseases that are out there that's got some really weird names. All right. Their hospital facilities are in shambles. There's a lack of medicine. There's a lack of everything, but only for the people, not for those who are in charge. Why? Communism only works for those that are in charge of it at the expense of the people. And once they run out of resources, you're done. Ask me how I know. When they took my grandfather's plantation back in the day, he was a tobacco farmer, right? And he asked them, okay, he asked them at one point, so what happens when I run out of seed? And he goes, well, that's your problem. You figure it out. We're not going to provide it, because communism does not build, manufacture, or create anything. They just take until it runs out. New York City, be very careful what you wish
It's
for.
going to be interesting few years coming to watch New York City.
That's all I'm saying. Okay, be very careful of what you wish for, guys, because I am telling you, this is going nowhere good. Same thing goes for New Jersey, Minneapolis, Dearborn, Michigan, Seattle. I am telling you, this is a Trojan horse that has this element, this communist element that is being embedded into our country, forcibly being shoved down our throats. And Texas, let's not forget them. Okay, and no one's talking about it on the mainstream. Nothing. You don't hear about it. Why? Well, you don't want to be insultive. You don't want to be labeled a homophobe or an Islamophobe or any other type of phobe that's out there. Okay, you just don't, because that would be mean. Okay. Tell me about, also government-run food stores. Let's see how that works here, right? When you have to stand outside a scorching sun waiting to see what you can buy, if there is anything to be bought with. That's another thing about communism. You can have all the money in the world, but if there's no resources for you to purchase, your money's worthless. You might as well use it as toilet paper, right? It's just my opinion. But anyway.
Nothing economically supports a lot of the things that idiot in New York has claimed he's going to do. You cannot support it. You would have to tax the people more than they earn. It's not going to work.
Well,
it's going to be a disaster for that city, and it's unfortunate.
Let's see how that cookie crumbles, right? Let me go ahead and
I don't think he's going to last a full term.
I don't think
it'll happen.
What are your thoughts, Mike? You think he's going to go the full gamut, or he's going to choke?
No, I don't think he's going to make the full term, to be honest with you. I think something's going to happen, or I don't know. I could not see him actually going the full 4 years.
Okay, well, that's going to be up for the people to decide, isn't it? Because I am telling you right now, it's not looking muy bueno. You know what I mean? It's just not. All right.
Where's the mafia when you need them?
Huh?
Yeah, I'm kidding.
Where's the mafia when you really need them?
I want to know where the soup Nazi is. When you walk in, is that no soup for you? Bread? Sorry, little man. Get out of anyway. I don't want to go with the Seinfeld jokes.
I'll step away for about 3 minutes. I'll be right back.
Yeah, no problem. Take your time. All right, guys. So what we're going to do now is I have a 1 hour video that I want to share with you. Okay. And basically, this is what's next for Venezuela with Gary. Hang on a second. With Gary Bernstein. Okay. It's going rogue with Laura Logan. And I need for you guys to play really, really, really close attention to this video. Okay. And she does her own ads. Okay. So once an ad pops up, and she's got numerous ones of those here, I'll go ahead and pause just to get some reaction from Ghost here and from Mike. All right. So pay attention here. It's an hour long, but I'm telling you, it's going to be worth your time watching this, because you're here today. And I am going to do another follow-up video to this one with the guy from Venezuela, and that's going to be next week. Okay, so make sure you stop by and check that one out. So let's go ahead and kick this off. Here we go.
Welcome to this important episode of Going Rogue with Laura Logan, where we are going to tackle head-on one of the biggest stories in the news that took place over the Christmas New Year period. That was the Trump administration's arrest of Nicolas Maduro and his wife, bringing them to the United States under an indictment that actually began long before President Trump ever took office. Even the first time was endorsed by Joe Biden, and now, of course, is being treated as extremely controversial across the media. So my guest for this episode has been heavily involved in Venezuela over the last few years. He is currently serving as a whistleblower on election fraud and other corruption, national security issues in Venezuela. His name is Gary Bernson. He is well known to many people across America because of his role more than 20 years in the CIA. He led the teams that went into Afghanistan right after 9/11, and that was captured in the book Jawbreaker and 60 Minutes story and other media reports that followed. Gary is a recipient of the highest awards that the CIA has to offer. And, he's really something unusual for all of you people out there who are thinking, the CIA is so bad. Why is she talking to someone from the CIA? How can we trust this person? Well, not everybody in the CIA is on board with with betraying the United States of America, with treason and sedition. Gary Bernson has stood his ground for years, has stayed in the fight, has been really at the forefront of the fight to preserve this country, uphold the Constitution, and protect America from all enemies, both foreign and domestic. And that's what we're really talking about here with Venezuela. Enemies, both foreign and domestic. Some people are looking at what's happening in Venezuela and they're wondering, what on earth does this have to do with us here in the United States? Trump said he was the president of peace. Now he's gone out there. He's doing exactly what Bush did. You can hear all the leftists and Republican establishment elitist talking points. Let's roll off a few of them. Trump is starting wars instead of ending them. Trump's doing the opposite of everything he said he was going to do when he was elected. Trump is, is now into regime change and so on and so on. And of course, President Donald Trump faces a very difficult path ahead in Venezuela and beyond. But what we're here to talk about today is exactly what the next steps are, what it looks like, how that is fraught with difficulty and risk, what it really means, why what's happening in Venezuela is directly related to everything in the United States. I share the frustration of more than 79 million Americans who voted for Donald Trump, who want to see indictments and arrests. I know Gary does because we've spoken about it, many, many times. But what people don't understand, I think, or let's put it this way rather, what is perhaps not well understood is how the indictment of Maduro and his wife and other indictments that may be coming are directly related to everything that has happened in the United States of America, starting with who installed an illegitimate regime in the United States in 2020 when they stole the election and put Joe Biden in place when he very obviously did not actually win. So Gary, this is, when we first spoke about election fraud and corruption and national security issues in Venezuela, it was, a while before the action that the Trump administration took, going and getting Maduro. And you put into perspective some of the more significant issues regarding elections. Can you just, first of all, what is your assessment and reaction to what has happened over the holidays?
Thank you. It's wonderful to be with you, Laura, and with your viewers. President Trump has used the armed forces of the United States to conduct the capture of Nicolas Maduro, who was of course the president of was installed himself as a president illegally. He ran an illegal election a couple of years ago, sold the election in a nationwide election there. So he didn't win the election that had him sitting there. He and his vice president Delcy Rodriguez stole that election from Edmundo Gonzalez, and has been occupying that position. And the irony is, none of the Europeans accepted, and almost no one in the world accepted him now. But people are saying, Donald Trump is trying to do regime change. Well, actually, he's trying to do a restoration of democracy. He's trying to do a restoration of humanity down there in Venezuela, because the Chavistas, starting with Hugo Chavez when he came to power in 1998, and he was in power for roughly 14 years, and now Nicolas Maduro, almost 14, 15 years, have violated human rights, have violated all norms, have murdered, probably similarly murdered over 20,000 people and imprisoned 25 to 30,000 people. They
And those
are
are political prisoners, Gary, right?
political prisoners. You know, the irony though is that out of the 20,000 killed, you know, it's like Hugo Chavez probably did maybe 7 of them. Maduro's violence was greater during the period of like 2016 to 2019. He killed a lot more people than Hugo Chavez ever did. Delcy Rodriguez and Jorge Rodriguez, who are the second and third most powerful people there, were both children of a communist guerrilla in the 1970s. Jorge Antonio Rodriguez, who who kidnapped a gentleman by the name of William Niehaus, who was an American executive there, and they claimed he was with the CIA. He was eventually recovered, and then their father was hunted down, was captured, and then was extrajudicially killed. Both of them.
So wait, Gary, before you go into Delcy and Jorge Rodriguez, let's just help people understand that after Maduro was arrested with his wife, Delcy Rodriguez, who was vice president of Venezuela at the time, then stepped up and assumed power.
Yeah, she has been assumed. Exactly, that's right. Delcy Rodriguez came to power with Nicolas Maduro during that illegal re-election. And with Nicolas Maduro's capture by U.S. forces, she has stepped up and had herself sworn in as the president now.
And there's a strong faction in the United States. I mean, you can guess it's the usual suspects, right? Elements of the CIA and beyond, who are backing Delcy Rodriguez and actually presenting her as if she's a solution. Like, oh, you know, you get rid of Chavez, the problem is solved, and you put Delcy in there.
Quite unbelievable, because she really is and has been the brains of the cartel's operation. She's been the financial manager for Nicolas Maduro. She's the one that has invested or expended a lot of the cartel's money on Hezbollah and Hamas, and she's organized complex financial engagements with these terrorist organizations, with the enemies of America like Iran and Russia and China. But she's been a partner of Hezbollah and Hamas, which is ironic because her father, you know, who had been killed years ago, and her stepfather were both terrorists, you know, and so she
don't gloss
continued
over that.
the tradition.
Let's talk about that. Her stepfather was Carlos the Jackal.
Yes, he was. You know, after her father, her biological father, was killed, her mother married the most famous terrorist in the world, Vladimir Ilyich Ramirez, Carlos the Jackal, who the United States and the French captured in the Sudan and was in jail for all these years in France. He killed a couple of French police officers too. So,
are you guys starting to get the gist here?
For years, they could not even identify who Carlos the Jackal was. Now, for that man to have married, oh my God.
Yeah.
He was quite a piece of work.
And who they're talking about here, ladies and gentlemen, is Cartel de los Soles. The ones that you don't know about or hear about much, as opposed to all the other ones. Because their deal wasn't just narco trafficking. It goes much, much, much deeper into that. So let's continue here.
this is a woman that comes with some interesting family values or lack thereof.
Well, and Gary, Carlos the Jackal, for people who are not really intimately familiar with his history, I mean, he was arguably, in our lifetimes, one of the most prolific and violent terrorist leaders the world has ever seen.
The OPEC council meeting in Vienna and held them all hostage, you know, in a spectacular terrorist raid years and years ago. And then, of course, the French police went to arrest him, and they knocked on his door, and they were interviewing him, not knowing he was Carlos the Jackal, and he just killed 2 French policemen dead right in the doorway. And so it was years later where we, the United States, tracked him down and brought the French in and were able to capture him, and he faced justice. But it was many years and took a lot of effort. But the fact is Delcy Rodriguez, that anyone would even consider her as the potential leader of Venezuela for any period of time is a little shocking. But the Trump administration here looks like they're trying to do this in bites.
Well, Gary, I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but I just want to say that, I mean, just the idea that Delcy Rodriguez could actually lead Venezuela, every single reason that you went after Nicolas Maduro, that he was indicted, every single thing applies to Delcy Rodriguez and more.
Yes.
Correct?
Correct.
So it doesn't make any sense if you're about freedom for Venezuela, if you're about dismantling the cartel, if you're about dismantling the system that traffics hundreds of thousands of children every year for sex, for labor, that puts children forward all over the world to be raped and tortured to death. Right? If you're going after that system that steals elections, that installed Joe Biden as the illegitimate leader of this country when they stole the 2020 election, you can't leave Delcy Rodriguez in place.
What
That's
happened
a joke.
was, right, what happened is this. The cartel has trillions of dollars. They're paying lobbyists in the United States, lobbying firms in Washington, lobbying firms in Miami. They have done everything possible to flood influencers toward the Republican Party and toward the White House to say that Gelsky can do this. She'll be a moderating thing, which was just such a unbelievable lie. And there are individuals in South Florida, one man, Harry Sargent, who's actually his attorney is going to be representing
Maduro.
Maduro. And these people have been all partnered together in smuggling oil. There's another Venezuelan famous oil smuggler by the name of Wilmer Ruperte and another American businessman by the name of Frank Holder. They've all collaborated for years in these illegal schemes. Frank Holder's mentioned in the book by Ralph Pizzullo called Stolen Elections, The Plot to Overthrow Democracy, as a principal agent of the cartel. And, look, the Department of Justice is investigating a lot of these people. They've been investigating election fraud. I think you're going to see movement on all of this now because it's complex and it's slow. Look, I was kind of spoiled in my years at the agency. I could identify guys, capture them, bring them to justice, turn them over to the FBI and walk away. And then the Bureau would be, they'd have to take 3 or 4 years to make the case and get it done. And I'm already moved on to other cases. So DOJ, it moves slowly, but there are now some very fine people in the Bureau. I've had my problems with the Bureau over the last few years, but there's a couple of good people working on these cases right now, trying to get this through. Part of the problem right now is leadership in the Department of Justice has been dragging their feet on anything that touches election fraud. Election fraud is like the third rail that they don't want to touch. And the Venezuelans led this. Nicolas Maduro had Delcy Rodriguez and Jorge Rodriguez were owners of Smartmatic, okay? They're owners of the very system that Smartmatic and Dominion, there's some complex business structures in Curacao where they own, along with Diosdado Cabello, one of the drug kingpin of the Cartel dos Soles, they actually are the owners of Smartmatic. Through some very complex structures.
Harry, let's break that down for people because not everyone is familiar. Smartmatic is the original voting machine company, right? That was created in Venezuela. That partnered with the CNE.
That partnered with the Consejo Nacional Electoral to steal the first elections. It was Smartmatic and the CNE together stealing elections in Venezuela.
So you're talking about the referendum in 2004. Maduro was going to lose. And that's when his friends in Cuba and Cuban intelligence came to Maduro and they said, we've been working on this system. We've got these lottery machines.
And they hired 3 young engineers in that period of time, Antonio Mujica, Roger Peñate, and Alfredo Anzola, to build the first machines and to construct the first source code. And they did that with the Cuban instruction. The Venezuelans helped finance it. And then after they stole that first election in 2004, they would go out into Latin America and start to steal elections in places like Argentina and in Bolivia and in Ecuador, and then eventually into the United States. First elections in the United States were Democratic primaries in Chicago and in New Jersey. So this was, and eventually Smartmatic would be forced to divest itself because they would never say that they were Venezuelans. They sold it to a company called to Sequoia. They bought Sequoia.
Sequoia first,
yes. They took the source code, put it in Sequoia, but still, the U.S. government, CFIUS, which was an investigative body, U.S. Treasury's investigative body, would force them to then divest it again, and it would be sold to a company called Dominion out of Toronto. But
so
again,
basically what happened, Gary, is all those years ago when the
Toronto.
CFIUS investigation was launched, people in the United States were watching what was happening with Smartmatic as it was growing and taking over elections everywhere. It started in Los Angeles, in California, and they at first Smartmatic was going to fight that investigation. Then they realized they couldn't fight it because of course they were created in Venezuela with Venezuelan money under Chavez. And so they did that fake sale, which was basically just, a con, right? And it was meant to sort of add layers of obscurity.
you know something?
And
Ironically, CNN covered that story years ago. Lou Dobbs and Katie Pilgrim narrates it, and they show the ownership documents, and they show Omar Monquilla on the document. He was the chief of staff for Hugo Chavez with Mujica, Peñate, and Anzolo. It's unbelievable. And that, of course, has been buried by CNN, and they reported it. It was amazing.
Are you guys starting to connect the dots here in the chat? Do you see where this is going? It gets better. I'm telling you.
When he mentioned Toronto, he mentioned and Dominion out of Toronto. Look, I'm not going to say much because I'm still all up in this stuff.
You don't have to, bro. But listen, my point here being,
they need to mention that Swiss Post bought Seidel under an engineered bankruptcy out of Barcelona. Now, Swiss Post is the postal service for Switzerland.
yes.
Okay, they had ownership of it. Then it was transferred over here. Okay. Now, all of that, you know what happened with that information. I told you. I'm not going to say it. No need to.
No.
Just smacking a bee nest, and I don't want to have to set that fucking nest on fire.
No, don't want to kick the hornet's nest.
So, yeah, there's a lot, and then you have the involvement of the Vatican's satellite system.
Yes.
You have the transferring of the information. And you have the huge influence of the Vatican in Venezuela, as well as Cuba and other locations.
And Ireland.
You're getting to see straight on who is a hidden hand in a lot of this. And when I say the Vatican, I'm not referring to Catholicism or religion or any of that. No. It is a sovereign territory. It is a sovereign entity. And you cannot get into the records. You cannot see how much money their bank deals with Bank of England and BIS. You cannot see the real relationship between them and the Archbishop of Canterbury. And if it switched to Dominion in Toronto, MI6 was all up in that shit. And he knows that. I'm wondering if he's going to say it.
Well, I don't know. Let's see. But my point being, stateside, within our country, forget overseas. That has a big thing. But here in America, look at the cities that he mentioned and Laura did. California, the test bed for all this bullshit, right? The test bed. Then you have Toronto. Then you have New Jersey. Then you have Chicago. What are they? The ones that are currently on fucking fire right now with this Islamist bullshit. Oh, this gets better, folks. This guy, I told you, bombshell, like the thumbnail says. Let's continue.
Yeah. Well, that was because they had Lou Dobbs, who was a real reporter, right? Then they got rid of Lou Dobbs, and Lou Dobbs remembered all of this. So when the 2020 election was stolen,
he did.
He was still reporting it, and that's why they came after him again.
Yes. It's a crazy story.
Yeah. So basically what you had is a system where, people will look at this and think, well, I mean, how can Venezuela be involved? But they don't understand that Venezuela is not acting alone. First of all, Cuban intelligence is with them every step of the way. And Cuban intelligence is actually one of the most sophisticated intelligence networks and operations in the world.
Yes, they are.
Right? Very human. They're very dangerous. They're a worthy opponent. They have done a job on us.
Yes, they have.
Yep. And that's why, before Biden came in, when I was covering the border, when you had Cubans were apprehended crossing the border illegally, that was a big deal. That used to bring Customs and Border Patrol to a halt. Right, everything used to freeze, and journalists were given a lot of access. But if the Cubans were involved, it was like no, you can't go near, because it was recognized, because the United States government knew very, very well exactly how dangerous and effective Cuban intelligence are. And of course, under Biden, that changed completely, and it was just Cubans.
Actually,
and
it
Lions.
changed under Obama in 2008, because Obama moved us and established a relationship, and even a liaison relationship, between the CIA and the Cuban intelligence service, which is insane. And a number of CIA officers became very cozy with the Cubans, and a number of them were recruited by the Cubans. We had
So
senior
they're doubles.
CIA
They're
officials
traitors.
collaborating with the Cuban intelligence services for almost 2 decades.
Okay, there you go.
What am
Right.
I always? What I'm always preaching in certain conversations. You need to get back to human intelligence.
Yes.
Cuba doesn't have an NSA or an NRO
Nope.
or other agencies that some are not even known. They do it the old-fashioned way. They
Old
infiltrate.
school. Old school.
They human to human interaction.
Everything
And
is old
yes.
school, brother. You know
Mhm.
this from me, and I can't talk about it here.
And
But now you
I keep
understand.
saying that you cannot keep relying on electronic intelligence, open source. Yes, it has a part, it has a role. You'll find the fingerprints in metadata. But where the work really gets done is eyeball to eyeball and mouth to ear. And the Cubans have mastered that. They had to.
Yeah.
We got lazy and misdirected.
K. Sarah has a question here. It goes. It says, does all this ultimately trace back to black nobility, Gulf specifically?
So they're one party of many involved,
There you go.
but a very, very influential one.
Yep.
And a very dangerous one.
One party. There you go. Now you have a better understanding of what we talk about on the back channel, right, brother?
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go.
And
everything is old school. Everything is old school. Everything. We'll talk about that later.
When you get certain people in certain positions, when you have them by the nuts, or they've agreed to work with you for whatever reason, money, a little bit of, for whatever reasons they do it, I don't understand it. The rationale behind it, I can observe it, I can analyze it, but I don't understand it ultimately, why the hell you would do that. But they are good at that. They're very good at that. Another intel agency that doesn't get enough is the French.
Oh, correct.
They're still a lot in the breathable existence intel world. And your electronics and your all the way up to space and down. Yes, that has an extremely important role. Observation from that platform gives you more than you can imagine, but it comes down to what people do and are led to do and don't do, and that comes down to good old-fashioned human intelligence. And if once you've mastered that, then you've got the Cubans, for example.
Mike, are you feeling what we're dropping here?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I couldn't see why we would ever move away from the human intelligence at all. I just going to all electronic, it doesn't make any sense. It's essentially getting too complacent, thinking that we can just move on to something different, when in reality, what you already had is tried and true, and you should be sticking with that and complementing it with additional technologies.
And we are bulging at the seams with everything from industrial and corporate spies here, and we are fully infiltrated with other foreign services here. It's as if counterintelligence has gone out the window.
Yes, it
Although
had.
they'll catch the occasional Chinese dude who's got 30,000 pages of documents under his crawl space at his house, and it takes him 15 years.
Now, Ghost, you're
The ball's
gonna,
being dropped on all of this, has been for the last 30 years.
yeah, and you're going to catch something, a statement that this man is going to make, and I'm not going to give it away yet because of the folks in the chat here. He mentions OSS, and you and I have had conversations about that. What, a month or two ago?
Yeah,
and what happened
it
with
needs
that?
to be retooled into an OSS, and FBI needs to be reconsidered, and Homeland Security just needs to be folded into Marshals.
Wait for it, okay? Because, and Mike, you know this old saying because you're in the tech space, right?
Yep.
Remember this old saying that used to go from Microsoft, everything old is new again?
Yeah. Yeah.
There you go. That's number one. And number two, what is the best form of advertisement? Word of mouth.
Word of mouth.
Yep.
No electronics. There you go. Let's continue.
One of the most dangerous things that's happened in our history. And the Obama people were partners. The Democratic Party became partners with the Cartel del Solis and the Cuban Intelligence Service.
Bingo.
And for people who don't know, Cartel de los Soles, the Cartel of the Suns in Venezuela, is the largest criminal organization
In the history of the world. We knew that they stolen at least $2.7 trillion. They make the mafia look like pikers. They may look, I mean, they're just, they were able to become the Costco of cocaine. So what the Cartel del Sol was doing was taking all the raw cocaine out of Bolivia, out of the Chapare, taking it out of Peru, taking it out of southern Colombia, bringing it all together and becoming the shipping point and a super highway for cocaine delivery to the planet. Because they own their own ports, they own their own airports, they control the entire trade. And, you know, everyone that talks a lot about the Mexican cartels essentially became their delivery service, their logistical arm for the Cartel del Solis.
What you're talking about here, Gary, is people think that, you know, there's a government in Venezuela and the government runs the country. But actually, the cartel runs the country and runs the government.
Criminal organization, the cartel has been running that country and is still running that country. Look, they removed Nicolas Maduro. The Cartel del Solis is a 9-headed hydra of a dragon. Okay, they just cut off Nicolas Maduro's head there, but this thing is still functioning. Now, the U.S. military has surrounded the place and is pinning them down and it's choking off the Cubans. The Cubans aren't getting the oil. This is really damaging Cuba. Cuba needed that 50,000 barrels a day to stay alive. You know, for the first 50 years of the Cuban Revolution, the Russians supported them, and then the Soviet Union did. When the Soviet Union collapsed, they needed to find new support. Their support was Venezuela and Venezuelan oil. But now Donald Trump is choking them off. So the move against Venezuela is a move not just against Venezuela, but it's against Cuba as well.
Yes, Cuba and also against Iran, is it not?
Yes, it is, because the Iranians got a lot of money there, and Hezbollah and Hamas received massive financing from the Cartel del Solis. I mean, this.
Okay, before your point.
Okay.
For those of you in the audience, okay, over there on YouTube and over here on Rumble, okay, do you still believe that the reason Donald Trump went into Venezuela, number one, was just oil? I beg to differ. The answer is no. The prime objective there was Dominion and Smartmatic.
And this is what, remember,
there's an election coming. Go ahead, Ghost.
Remember, it was months ago we talked about this. You asked me something, and I said they're going to smack Venezuela around. Not so much because of what people will be led to believe or will think automatically. They want the voting information.
Bingo.
That is sequestered there. And that's one of the things that were, let's say, absconded with in the recent military action. So it's not a war. This is
No.
sending in your tip of the spear to get crucial and critical information. And it's people are going to be amazed at the names that come out who took 30, 40, $50 million from this group and others that are sitting in high offices
This
and
man is
administrative positions.
This man is going to drop a name, and I'm not going to give it away here, but it has to do with PAC money. PAC. I'm just going to leave it there.
And the
Sure.
Chinese, never forget their involvement. Back in the 80s, they were inserting themselves in Trinidad and Tobago, Puerto Rico, Cuba, and Venezuela.
Uh-huh.
So there was a lot of proxy action going on in setting them up to become this hydra and this behemoth.
Iran as well, I believe, right?
Yes, sir.
There was involved, yes, and active pipelines from Iran, the regime in Iran through Africa to South America, as far as bringing, let's say, bad guys to cross the border into the U.S. and to also support with weaponry and other things. But that was being supplied by China. China's game is to stay as far in the background as possible, provide as many resources as possible to create this downstream chaos.
Because China has always played long ball. They always have.
Exactly. We're going to take back the canal. If I don't know the status of that. Have they done that yet? I mean, some things I'm out for lunch on.
I don't know. I think that's still in the works, but we'll see. Mike?
I thought they did, but I'm not entirely sure on that one. I'm just going off of a faint memory, so I'm gonna probably not answer that one entirely.
Yeah, they need to get the Chinese completely out of that. I hope Sec War is on that one, but let's continue here.
And isn't Delcy Rodriguez
for our enemies.
Gary, isn't Delcy Rodriguez personally involved in some of those payments to Hamas and Hezbollah?
Yes, she is. She
and
was
we're
the
talking
payback.
about, when we say payments, we're talking about, in one payment, what, $10 million?
$100 million. I mean,
It's unbelievable.
She has moved massive amounts of money. Look, the problem for the agency and for these other individuals in the U.S., these individuals trying to influence the White House and the president, is that she's going to be indicted. She's going to be indicted. There's all of this is being assembled right now. So you have one group of people trying to support Delcy in the United States because they want the party to continue, and others who support rule of law are assembling all of these things to indict her, so she too will face justice in the United States. She's guilty of sin.
Are you concerned that inside Venezuela they're going to start killing off all the political prisoners? Because
we are worried about that. We are significantly worried. Look, they are holding thousands of political prisoners there, and the sooner we're able to resolve the situation. Look, a National Reconstruction Council has been organized. Okay, the names aren't being provided publicly because they know their family members will be killed in Venezuela. But they have assembled a number of former ministers, former political heavyweights in academia and law and government, have organized themselves together, and they're starting to coordinate with the U.S. government. But they can't become public because this transnational cartel is led now by Delcy and Jorge. Okay, it's just been turned over to the two of them. They are killers. Make no mistake. They are killers. And anyone who thinks that this is normal governance is just fooling themselves. But the Trump administration did an excellent operation on seizing Maduro because that has terrified these people. They are terrified of Donald Trump now, but they're trying to maneuver, outlast him, and their supporters in the United States, their lobbyists and their agents are trying to find a way so that the cartel can survive. But, understand something. This we mentioned 2.7 trillion. That money is out there in the world. So even if they get to flee, the cartel will exist outside of Venezuela for a time until they're hunted down and all their money is taken away from them. This is all ongoing. And so, Trump's efforts against them are not just this military effort. There's an effort now to pursue their money. There's an effort to build indictments against a number of them and their supporters. There's an all of government exercise ongoing here. But again, the wheels of justice, grind slowly, and they're
So,
trying to get it to move more quickly.
Gary, can you explain to people what's happening? There's this very understandable frustration that people have been allowed to get away with treason, sedition, fraud, you name it. The list of crimes is unbelievable. And, you reference problems inside the Justice Department. There's one or two good people. You've managed to find them. Thank the Lord you've managed to find them, because it feels for the public like there just aren't enough of them. And some people are losing hope. Some people are frustrated, and there's people saying, well, it's great that you're indicting Maduro, but it would be nice to see some indictments at home.
There are a number of other indictments en route. They're working on them. They're doing the investigations. We provided witnesses again and again and again to the offices that are doing this. Remember, part of this process was Tren de la Aragua. The Venezuelans sent Tren de la Aragua into the United States as a super gang to destabilize the United States. They gave 300 of them training, paramilitary training.
Isn't that a foreign paramilitary force, Gary? Calling it a gang to me is misleading.
It started as a gang and it became a foreign paramilitary force, as you stated. I did the initial collection with my business partner. We turned this over to the U.S. government. The Biden administration wouldn't take the information. It was only after the Trump election that Homeland Security recontacted us and we gave them that. But in the last 2 weeks, there's been 5 major indictments and hundreds of people have been indicted, members of Tren de la Aragua across the United States. And there have been indictments in Florida and in Colorado and in Nebraska and all over the place. So, I had a meeting with the FBI at one point. They said, well, our analysts say you're a liar. Well, now that there's been 5 indictments, I guess I'm not a liar. It was quite shocking.
Where can people find those indictments so that they can see?
If you Google them, if you Google indictments on Tren de la Aragua, you'll see that out in Nebraska, they actually did an attack sort of on a what do you call it, an ATM. They took it apart and they had their technicians engineered, and then they did a download of tens of millions of dollars across the state of Nebraska. And so so these guys are pretty clever, and they
have a lot of backing.
They had state backing,
Mm-hmm.
and so Maduro got caught. This was one of the reasons. It's not just about drugs. The Trump administration recognized that they were conducting hybrid war on America. The Venezuelans and their allies, Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, China, Russia, were doing a hybrid war on America, and this is a fight back against that.
So, for Gary, for all the people out there who are like, oh, we don't want to go to war. We don't want to start war. We don't want to be involved in regime change. And, we're supposed to be the president of peace and the party of peace now. How on earth is Donald Trump supposed to dismantle the most powerful and wealthy, prolific criminal cartel in the entire world without indicting somebody, without
you have to indict him. You have to do what he's doing. And he's thank God that he's the president and he's done this. The Biden administration was their partner, was their collaborator. That's the truth. They were their collaborator. And so Trump is fighting back on this and many other fronts. Remember, this president was indicted for all sorts of phony charges. He had to fight for his own survival. He had to fight. Listen, if Donald Trump had not been reelected, the police, the FBI would have tried to arrest me and my business partner for investigating election fraud, investigating Tren de la Aragua. They would have gone after us for all of these things. Actually, people in the FBI told us that we were investigating. I had to leave the United States and live in Switzerland for a year so I could continue investigating election fraud so that I wouldn't be detained.
It's unbelievable.
It is shocking.
Gary, how close are we to losing this country?
We were very close to losing this country. Had Donald Trump lost that election, and if we had lost control of the Senate, they would have put 13 new people in the Supreme Court. They would have changed the court. There was a Wyden plan to have 24 people on the court. They were going to modernize the Supreme Court. What they would have done is begun to change the rules of the United States. It would have changed how this nation is governed and turned us into some sort of weird socialist experiment. We would have been on our way to rule like Venezuela. Donald Trump is not off when he states that we would have been turned into some socialist disaster. The Democratic Party has been taken over by crazy people on the left who are wicked, that want to dismember the constitutional republic that we have. We are fighting to hold the constitutional republic together.
But Gary, they're aided, abetted, directed by some of your buddies in the CIA.
Some of the people that I worked with before have been colluding with them. They have to be identified. They have to be proven to have broken the law and imprisoned for what they have done. It is a disgrace. But I and others, there's still a number of us, including yourself, that are in this fight, trying to expose this, trying to get individuals exposed and cases built against them, and trying to save the republic. That's what this is about now. This is about saving the republic.
Hence the reason why the midterms, ladies and gentlemen, is critical. It is critical that we win the midterms. Okay. And now you're finding out why. All right. Any comments so far, guys?
Well, the system is broken. Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, and this is really regarding the one part where she was referring to, nobody wants any new wars and whatnot, and I understand that. I think we all do. My honest opinion is the solution should be tier 1 assets. Just let them rein loose. Let them go.
Right.
No hands tied behind their back. Let them do their fucking job like they did in Venezuela. And I think that should also be done south of the border in Mexico. Problem solved.
Exactly.
That's underway.
Yeah.
That is currently underway.
You have people, what they call blackpilling themselves and saying, well, screw it all. You can't do that. You can't. You have to vote. Even though it has been hijacked and changed, at least now there's a chance to, let's say, in 90% of the country, have it working as it should this next election. And what I hope these indictments and further actions bring out is the very people sitting in Congress who are scared shitless right now. So scared, they're not even railing against Trump. They're just shutting up. Notice that, because they're scared. They know what they've done. They know who they've engaged with. They know where they've received money from. A lot of it.
Which makes sense why Bongino left and people are trashing him. He saw the writing on the wall, like we're listening to it now or watching it. And then, Patel with, 5% is the percentage that can be trusted. Now you're understanding why. Okay. The poison is not just geo. The poison is in the homeland.
It's internal in every position you can imagine.
Correct. And that's the fight. That's the battle. That's what we're up against. Again, the midterms have to be voting wise as powerful as the 2024 election. It has to be just as powerful. We cannot lose the House in the midterms. Cannot. If we do, lame duck. Okay. And the next day, if the other side takes it, here come the impeachments after Trump on a daily basis. I'm telling you, it's game over.
I think what we're going to see is some drastic events.
Yes,
correct. In a certain way, it's the only way to A, shock and scare the American people, and B, show them what the real fucking problem is and how extensive it is. And do you want it cleaned up? Yes or no? Everything's in place to do it. It's a matter of when will that pivotal move be made?
Galactic Potato here puts a very interesting question. Why vote for Uniparty APIC shills? Well, I
don't vote for Uniparty. Yeah, go ahead.
I see where you're coming from with that question. But again, there's an old adage that goes, if you're presented with a turd and then you're presented with another turd, but that turd is polished on a silver platter, which one would you pick? Right? Because at the end of the day, they're both turds, right? I'll take the shiny polished one on the silver platter, roll the dice, and let's see where we land, because we're at that point. Because not voting at all, okay, you're basically saying, let them take it, screw it. No, 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 no. Why? Because there's nowhere else to go on this planet, guys. Take it from me. Everything has already been had except here. We are the final frontier, not to paraphrase Star Trek, but this is it. This has to be saved by any means necessary. I'm telling you, it has to be. If not, your kids, your grandkids, they're screwed. And that's the fight here. It's not about me. And I'm sure Joe will attend to this, and Mike will as well. It's not about me. It's the future of the kids and the grandkids. I don't want them living under what I lived as a kid. There's no freaking way, man. No way. Cannot. We got to fight by any means necessary. Okay? Not violence. I'm not condoning violence either, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. And there has to be countermeasures taken as far as the, let's say, the narrative, the temporal picture most have in their minds. It has to be changed. There have to be more, let's say, Q-type operations out there to get people to start. That helped so many, and it was designed simply to help people recalibrate and reorient their processing of information and what to accept, and which is very little, to be honest with you. Everything has to be dissected. Everything has to be taken apart, and know when you're being diverted. The whole, yes, when Charlie Kirk was assassinated, it broke my heart. The kid was out there doing a good thing. He was effective. Okay? But now it's turned into a food fight.
Yep.
And understand who the players are in this food fight. And I can't tell you the origin of Candace Owen. I know it, but I'm not going to say it.
No, don't, because she's an alien and Charlie Kirk was a time traveler.
Yeah. God almighty. God help us. But this whole food fight of Turning Point America, all of that, it's got to stop. Take attention away from it, it'll go away. And what is being done with his organization now, I'd be highly suspect of, not because of his wife, but because of his wife's inability to manage it.
Correct.
And others who have their hands in, and there are known operatives from foreign countries in that organization. There's influenced people in that organization.
Mm-hmm.
And that lead, I would say, another group, take their thunder and run with it. Let them go by the wayside. Because what made them what they were was that young man. He's dead. And being distracted by these asinine arguments, defamation campaigns can put out anything on anyone. But know that Miss Owens is married into a British bankster family. She's worth $200 million. She's making a lot of interesting and good assertions at times, but all they're doing is stirring the pot. This argument and this food fight is not going to put your children's and your grandchildren's future on the right trajectory. It's a waste of time and energy. I'm using it as an example. There are many others out there like it that people are arguing over and spending so much time and energy on. The whole trans agenda, that was already tested in other countries before getting here, but you didn't hear about it. And when it wasn't effective here, when people were just saying, blowing it off and saying, well, that's a minuscule aspect of the population, then these operatives put it into the schools, children,
Yep.
laws that are unbelievable that they could have ever passed in certain states, where a guidance counselor could help your kid move in that direction at the age of 12 or 13 or even younger at times, and you didn't have to be told about it. They did that because the other aspect wasn't getting traction enough. People were making too many. It was easier to make a joke about it than to take it seriously.
And let's not forget that,
it's all, and that was all a engineered psyop.
Yeah. And let's not forget the prayer rugs in middle schools on the cafeteria floor, like I personally experienced, and also halal foods on the school lunch menus that I personally witnessed because I'm in that space. But
and this stuff is being done on purpose.
Yep.
And it's yeah.
Let's keep going.
No magic.
We got a lot to cover here.
You think the CIA is salvageable?
No, I think that the CIA needs to be closed. We need to create a new OSS like we did in World War II. And on its side, alongside of it, we need to create a counterintelligence service like MI5 that does nothing but counterintelligence. We are overrun. Yes. Sadly, our adversaries have learned that they can very easily recruit and turn Americans against their society and against their countrymen. They take the money, and then they're working for these foreign powers to bring down our constitutional republic. That is what is ongoing.
Gary, how many Americans have sold out? How many have taken the money, whether it's from the Cubans or from the Iranians or the Venezuelans or the oil companies or the CCP? How many of our elected officials on both sides of the aisle, Democrat and Republican, have sold out this country and sold their souls?
Let me just say this. Dozens in the most sensitive positions.
There you go.
It's just, I would not have believed it had I not been involved in the investigation myself. And if I had not been look, for your viewers, I'm the person with my business partner that identified Manuel Rocha, Ambassador Manuel Rocha, who was the most senior spy ever arrested in the United States. He was arrested about 1.5 years ago. It was I and my partner that identified him as the Cuban agent, and he was arrested by the FBI. Okay, so, this isn't my first rodeo. And I've done counterintelligence work before. We did it successfully here. He was arrested. He's in prison. And
tell people who Manuel Rocha was when he was arrested.
Manuel Rocha was a foreign service officer that rose through the ranks to become an American ambassador. He served at the highest positions of the government. He served in the National Security Council as an advisor on Western Hemisphere to the President of the United States. His last job in government was as the ambassador at Southcom. Southcom is Southern Command for the Department of Defense, and he was an advisor sitting next to the combatant commander for all of the Western Hemisphere. For almost 4 or 5 years, he read every single CIA report for all of the Western Hemisphere. That's all of Latin America, provided that to the Cubans and the Venezuelans on a daily basis. And after he left that, he was off in the Dominican Republic, working at a place called Barrick Gold as the president of that company, and using that money to aid the Cuban intelligence services, paying some of their sources through that company. So it was kind of shocking that when we learned all of this, and thank goodness that we were able to get the FBI or the Department of Justice. It was a very capable U.S. attorney in Puerto Rico that was able to direct the Bureau to conduct the investigation, concluded successfully, to capture him and put him under prison. And, they have 6 hours of video. People should watch it, where the FBI's made it public, where he talks about the fact that they had one of their officers posed as a Cuban intelligence officer that was turning him back on because he had been retired by then. And he said, yes, I was in the belly of the beast. The Americans are the enemy. I was with Fidel. I'm your brother. I worked in the hardest of times against the beast. That's us, the United States. I knew this man who posed as a conservative Republican ambassador in the Department of State and knew him for years. Didn't suspect he was a spy until the end.
How many more Manuel Rochas are there out there right now?
6.
In the White House? Any of them?
There are people in the administration, a number of them that are working for the Cuban intelligence services that are paid. There are a number that are retired, that are still on the payroll, that are in our State Department and in our intelligence services that are on the direct payroll of the Cubans and in the Venezuelan regime.
Yes, they are.
And the Bureau needs to speed up their efforts. And the agency has been blind to this. The agency is not even playing in this. It is the Bureau that is doing what work is being done.
And by the Bureau, you mean the FBI.
FBI, yes.
Say again?
They allowed it.
Yeah. They
People in
did.
positions in that organization have taken money. I need to call Laura and talk to this guy. I've got 22 terabytes of information he needs to look at.
Yeah. Well, I need to
Because
talk to him as well.
he's being effective, and a lot of people are, excuse the expression, but they're cockblocked. I'm sorry. And they're right there, and you try to get the information to them, and
They sit on
something
it.
somewhere comes from out of nowhere,
Mhm.
puts a bug in their ear, and they're stupid enough to listen to it.
That's correct.
And I've
That
been
is
through
correct.
I've been through that friggin' rodeo many times.
That is correct. Yeah, we need to do a conference call with Laura, because I'm telling you, man, this is
Yeah, I've got her. I know her, so we'll
Okay.
talk to her. And I want to
Yeah.
talk to this man. And if he's running a private intelligence service now, then yeah, I definitely would like to. There's a few things I'll hand him right away,
all right.
because
Let's-
you can't go to the FBI with it.
No,
You can't.
man.
And
No.
I only have so many people in one agency and another agency I can trust.
No.
Does anybody else think
Because
that
I've known him for
that's a
years.
lowball?
Say again,
What's
Mike.
that?
I was just saying, does anybody else think that half a dozen is lowball? I'd be compelled to believe there's more than just that.
There's a half dozen that are too close, but there are more than that. The numbers have been reduced from the first to the second. They're not going to put this stuff on the news, and it's not going to get out.
Yeah.
And I'm sure as hell not going to say anything, any names or anything like that, but they're aware of it. And
they are.
they had very little cooperation the first go around when Gina Haspel was over things. They had less from the FBI. It was totally infiltrated with change agents for globalists. And the Democratic Party is not a party anymore. It is an operative arm for this globalist agenda that is taking us apart through the ways he's discussing, that we've discussed, and in additional ways.
All right.
So it's going to take a serious series of events, and that's the only way to do this.
Let's press on.
And what about the DNI and now counterintelligence? What are they doing?
They're not doing a whole lot. I've done briefings of them. I've gone to them, and I felt like I was doing stand-up comedy. They didn't come back to me. They took notes, but there was no one in the room that was capable, and they didn't ask any good questions. They didn't understand what the hell they were doing. It was a disgrace.
Wow.
All the way
Really?
up to Tulsi? Can you get to Tulsi?
Excuse me?
Can you get to Tulsi Gabbard as the DNI?
Well, we've given information as many it looks like our best avenue is through one office of the FBI, which there's some capable people there.
Mm-hmm.
But
Sure.
and a U.S. attorney who's capable in the past that helped us. That's been our entry point. But when I've met with members of the Bureau, I've been so disappointed by the ones in Washington field office. Essentially, just stopped doing counterterrorism and went after January 6 people for years. And so as they chased these people around on January 6th, those people that were doing espionage in Washington had a field day and burrowed deeper and deeper and recruited more and more people in the Washington, D.C. area.
It was pure
WFO.
shit.
WFO was run by morons and traitors during the Biden administration. Washington field office of the FBI was run by morons and traitors.
but vindictive ones, because they pushed some January 6th defendants like Matthew Perna. They pushed them to take their own lives. They destroyed entire families. They didn't care about raiding the homes of decent, hardworking American citizens and putting guns to their children's heads.
Yeah, it was insane.
These are vindictive, spiteful, nasty, dishonest people.
That's why I had to leave the United
Stupid.
States for a year.
Because
Look,
they're also
I served all around the world for the United States, in the CIA, in places of combat. When I left the CIA, I went to work for JIDO, the Joint IED Defeat Organization. I've worked on contract for SOCOM with great people. I've risked my life for the country. And then when I went to the FBI and showed them how they were stealing elections, the bureau person I did meet with said, you need to flee the city because the bureau, my supervisors, will try to put you in jail, Mr. Bernstein.
It's unbelievable that's who we are.
So shocking. It is so shocking.
It really is.
That what they did was they sold themselves out to a left-wing ideology, and they don't care or even understand that this is a constitutional republic that we are trying to hold on to. As Benjamin Franklin said, you've got a constitutional republic. Let's see if you can hold on to it. That's what I'm trying to do.
Say again, Ghost.
They have to repopulate it and reestablish it. This is why these people can get away with what this bureaucratic sedition, as I've labeled it. This is why they get away with it, because we don't have a constitutional republic.
It's fraud.
It's gone.
It's all fraud.
It still exists. It is there. It is vacant. It must be repopulated.
Correct.
So it needs to start with things like the Treasury, move them back into the constitutional jurisdiction. In truth, post-14th Amendment jurisdictions such as the FBI, CIA, all of these agencies are unconstitutional. This is why he is saying the same thing I've said and you've said. We need to go back to an OSS type organization and a strong stateside counterintelligence organization. We are, and I said the same thing many times. We're bursting at the seams with operatives from so many nations, it's not even funny. And they're not doing a damn thing about it. But they're arresting people. A friend of mine, 4 years after, they didn't go anywhere near the Capitol building. What he did was he saw something and said something. And that was his downfall. But what he saw was COINTELPRO people handing out items and giving instructions out of the back of a Ryder truck 8 miles from the Capitol, because they headed the other way when they heard there was trouble, him and a bunch of old ladies in a church group. And because he reported what he saw, it was them, it was FBI egging the situation on. He's 4 years. He's driving his landlord up to a northern state to take her to her mother's funeral, and then drive her home. On the way back, he gets pulled over on the interstate in Ohio. FBI. He's told he's not going to see a lawyer for at least 6 months. I got the phone call. I made a call, and I said to my friends, if they can arrest this man, no one is safe.
Nope.
No one. 36 hours, he was back in Texas.
All right. Let's keep
And
going.
think of the effort, the manpower, the time, and the fucking idiots that were actually doing this work.
Yeah.
To a guy who is as godly and nice and good a human being as you will ever meet. And he saw something, said something. When I found out he had seen that and said something, I told him, you're going to have to watch it. You're not involved in anything and you're not doing anything other than urban renewal projects and business building in depressed areas. This is the kind of humanitarian work this man does. But because he saw them on the one end of the situation, the orchestrated situation of 6 January. All that time, 4 years.
And what is the slogan that we hear in the mainstream media all the time? Hey, if you see something, say something. Because if you do, then we're going to throw you in jail. Right?
But you better know what you're seeing before you say something.
Yeah,
Because
bingo.
if you see them at their own game, planting the very weeds that they want to pluck in front of the public, now you're going to get F2, just like he did for 36 hours. He would have wound up in there for 2 years.
Yeah.
If we hadn't said no. Bullshit on this one. Not only bullshit on all of them, but especially bullshit on this one.
All right. Let's keep going, man. More to cover here.
Okay, Gary, can you, without jeopardizing, well, let's first of all, can you confirm that there are investigations ongoing into some of these spies?
Yes.
And double agents, basically? Okay. And so without jeopardizing any of those investigations, is there anybody you can name?
No, I can't name them.
I understood.
But
Can we go back to the 3 names that you did mention, though, of people who've been working with the Venezuelans and the Cubans for many years? Frank Holder, right? You listed
Frank
3
Holder
names.
has been collaborating with the Venezuelan Cartel dos Soles for decades, and we mentioned I mentioned Harry Sargent is a businessman in South Florida who's actually a big time Republican donor. His lawyer is magically defending Nicolas Maduro now, but he's in the oil business, and they were in the oil business, and he's constantly been trying to assist and save this regime. This because he was trying to get these are people that all tried to get waivers on oil because we're all in the oil business with these people.
Is he the guy that's tried to buddy up to Trump and go golfing with him?
Yes, there are videos of him golfing with the president.
Treacherous, right? I mean, the president has to be alert every single minute.
It's terrible.
All these
it's the
trying to get
people around
close
the
to him.
president need to help the president. There's 1,000
And they use
people
their
trying to
money
get
for
they get
placement and
nowhere with this.
Gary, they use their money to get placement and access,
Yes,
right?
they do. They try to buy their way in.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, and it's hard to know who all these people are, especially in the beginning. Okay, but there's Sargent, there's Holder, and you mentioned a third person.
Well, there's a Venezuelan oil smuggler by the name of Wilmer Ruperti that they're all partnered with. Wilmer Ruperti.
Yep. Know who that
and
is.
Aunt Delcy and Jorge Rodriguez partnered with them
They're
too?
partnered there too with that group. Yes, they all do oil together.
They all do oil together. Are we talking about sanctioned oil?
Of course.
Which is
Any
completely...
kind of oil they can do. Look, these guys have been in this business for years.
They're transshipping.
How much money are we talking about that's floating around these people?
Oil.
Look, they've stolen trillions, right? But these guys we're talking hundreds of millions and billions. I mean, it's a different scale of money. When I was in CIA, 30 years ago, I was the chief of Hezbollah operations, and I would see Iran, would move 400 million a year to the Hezbollah. I thought that was a big deal. That's like 1 week's work in 1 month's work. And this with this crowd.
So, Gary, it seems to me there's a danger that the president is being set up here by people around him, especially coming from the intel agencies, who are trying to convince him that Delcy Rodriguez and Jorge Rodriguez can run the country. And basically, it's a control operation, right? They're losing control of a system.
What they were trying to do was they were trying to create a formula called Cartel Light, which was Delcy as the president, and they were going to bring a guy named Miguel Rodriguez Torres, who was the former head of the Civilian Intelligence Services, Sabine. This guy is a torturer. This is a guy that ran La Tumba and El Helcoide, the shopping mall. That's where they're torturing everyone. This is a guy that created that structure there, and they were promoting him as the transitional figure. This CIA was just
unbelievable,
shockingly unbelievable. But the problem is Radcliffe, who was over there, I don't think he has any clue what's going on there. I think he might want to do some of his own research because he's a prisoner of the people that are below him that are feeding him this, though. No former federal prosecutor would agree to any of this shit. But he has. It's unbelievable.
So you're talking about John Ratcliffe, head of the CIA.
Yeah. Look, I've never met the man, but based on his actions, he's incompetent.
He's not fit for
Well,
that
at
position.
best.
Say again.
He's not a bad man, but he's not fit for that position.
Shit. Hang on.
He handled one thing.
Don has begun to change the rules of the United States. It would have changed how this nation is five that does nothing but counter. Ambassador at Southcom. Southcom was through one office of the FBI, which there's some capable people there.
Putting guns to their children's heads.
Yeah, it was insane.
These are vindictive, spiteful, nasty, dishonest people.
That's why I had to leave the United States for a year.
Because they're all
I served all around the world for the United States.
Okay, Gary, can you, without jeopardizing, first of all, can you confirm that there are investigations on
this? Because, he was trying to get seized. These are people that all tried to get, waivers on oil, because we're all in the oil business with these people.
Is he the guy that's tried to buddy up to Trump and go golfing with him?
Yeah, there are videos of him golfing with the president.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Treacherous, right? I mean, the president has to be alert every single minute.
It's terrible.
All these
it's the people around the president need to help the president. There's 1,000 people trying to get
they get no
more of this.
Gary, they use their money to get placement and access,
yes,
right?
Yes, they do. They try to buy their way in.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's hard to know who all these people are, especially in the beginning. Okay, but there's Sargent, there's Holder, and you mentioned a third person.
Well, there's a Venezuelan oil smuggler by the name of Wilmer Ruperti that they're all partnered with. Wilmer Ruperti.
And Aunt Delcy and Jorge Rodriguez partnered with them
too?
They're
partnered there too with that group, yes. They all do oil together.
They all do oil together. Are we talking about sanctioned oil?
Of course.
Which is
any kind of oil they can do. Look, these guys have been in this business for years.
How much money are we talking about that's floating around these people?
Look, they've stolen trillions, right? But these guys we're talking hundreds of millions and billions. I mean, it's a different scale of money. When I was in CIA, 30 years ago, I was the chief of Hezbollah operations, and I would see Iran, would move 400 million a year to the Hezbollah. I thought that was a big deal. That's like 1 week's work in 1 month's work. And this with this crowd.
So, Gary, it seems to me there's a danger that the president is being set up here by people around him, especially coming from the intel agencies, who are trying to convince him that Delcy Rodriguez and Jorge Rodriguez can run the country. And basically, it's a control operation, right? They're losing control of a system.
What they were trying to do was they were trying to create a formula called Cartel Light, which was Delcy as the president. And they were going to bring a guy named Miguel Rodriguez Torres, who was the former head of the Civilian Intelligence Services, Sabine. This guy is a torturer. This is a guy that ran La Tumba and El Helcoide, the shopping mall. That's where they're torturing everyone. This is a guy that created that structure there, and they were promoting him as the transitional figure. This DIA was
just unbelievable,
shockingly unbelievable. But the problem is Radcliffe, who was over there, I don't think he has any clue what's going on there. I think he might want to do some of his own research because of he's a prisoner of the people that are below him that are feeding him this stuff. No former federal prosecutor would agree to any of this shit, but he has. It's unbelievable.
So you're talking about John Ratcliffe, head of the CIA?
Yeah, look, I've never met the man, but based on his actions, he's incompetent.
Well, at best.
At best.
I mean, incompetence is, is
I'm
at
giving
least
him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. Maybe you're too kind. I don't know. But I mean, certainly not encouraged by...
I am not encouraged at all.
Mm-hmm. So, Gary, anytime that you remove somebody like Maduro, right, the path ahead is fraught with difficulty. It's high risk. There are 100,000 things that can go wrong and play right into the hands of the narrative, right? The main narrative being, Trump is no different to Bush. He said he was different, but it's a lie. He said he was the guy of peace, but now he's doing regime change. And I just want to hear from you and to understand from you, what were the options that Trump had for those people who say, "Oh no, you shouldn't have done that." They're the
Well,
same
first off,
people that want
I
elections not
think it
to be
sends a
stolen.
powerful message to the cartel, our opponents, that he was able to go and, of course, I would have liked to have captured or killed the entire leadership of the cartel, but that wasn't possible. I guess he didn't see that as possible. And look, Pete Hegseth and Dan Kane are a lethal pair. And this was the option that they gave the president. I'm sure he didn't design the option. They did. He took it and they executed it perfectly. We need follow-up now. There's going to have to be more. There'll likely have to be a second
Would you
wave.
pause there
So,
just for a second?
I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. They did a superb operation.
Yeah.
There's
I
a
mentioned
comment.
that before.
Do you really think Donald Trump does not know what he's really happening? No, he knows.
No, he knows.
But you got to understand the bureaucratic sedition of not making a phone call, holding up a piece of paper, not organizing something, slowing it down, eventually killing small processes that feed into a larger one. That's going on all around him. He's aware of this, but who the hell is doing anything about it?
That's the problem.
The FBI sure as hell isn't.
Neither is
And
the
sure there's a lot of people in CIA who'd love to do something about it, but that's not their jurisdiction.
Nope.
So what are we stuck with? We're stuck with maybe private intelligence companies. I don't know.
Maybe.
Just a thought.
Maybe. We're stuck with an AG that doesn't do shit because she's being cock-blocked by the other side.
She's a Bush baby, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, she's handled by the Bushes. She's already told to stand down, right? Patel can only trust 5% of those around him, all right? You got the middle tier in the FBI that basically passes on intel to the fucking Congress, and what do? They sit on it, and nothing ever fucking gets done.
And he's being advised by astute political advisors like Dick Morris and others. And I know Dick, love the man, but they don't know the murky world. They don't know the intel world at all.
They don't know the game at all.
Because when you go there, they want to, I'm going to leave the room. I don't want to hear this. And you're like, no, you fucking need to fucking hear this. Because this is what you need to be driving home. General Flynn knows they're after him again.
Yep. You want another example? Look at that Secret Service agent that just got busted by that undercover reporter. I can't think of the name right now, where he disclosed every movement on JD Vance, every movement, every operation, every protocol, voiced it. Well, and he publicly admitted that he was a Biden supporter and he voted for Biden. Right? There you go. That's the problem that we have internally.
And everybody's I've seen it.
Still, they're focused on Russia, they're focused on Iran, they're focused on Israel. No, take your focus off everything externally and focus on the country here. Yes, thank you, Digi. It was,
and then foreign, go for the key foundational points.
Yeah,
let's fuck with Britain. Let's fuck with Denmark. They need it. Let's fuck with Switzerland. Let's fuck with them all.
Yeah,
let's create a new system.
And here's my latest joke.
A new game, and that's what it's leading up to.
And here's my latest joke, and I'm not going to dive into that subject here today at all, okay, is the Epstein stuff with the Clintons, all right? You've been summoned by Congress. They basically both of them gave them a middle finger, wrote a nasty gram to them, and said, no, we're not showing up. Oh, okay.
Well, then you send U.S. Marshals to escort them at gunpoint.
Now you're in contempt of Congress, okay? So there's an indictment coming, okay, and you're going to be arrested. And everybody's like, oh, shit, they're finally going to jail. When I see it, I'll believe it.
Yeah.
Period. Anyhow,
the double standards are sickening. I mean, they went after Roger Stone for the same shit, and who else? And rules for thee, not for me, and it's just maddening.
And anyone who tries to assist with credible intelligence or information, no, you better be real careful about where you go and how you get it in. And if you're not, you're going to pay for it.
Yeah.
And that shouldn't be the case. But this is the war, internal war, that we've been talking about for years.
See, the Clintons are playing the same card that Eric Holder, remember him, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Fast and
And what
Furious.
happened to
Oh,
him?
you're in contempt of Congress. You're going to be you're going to be arrested. Okay, they went through all that shit. What happened? Oh, case dismissed. Nothing to see here. Move on. The Clintons are probably they're gonna get the same card dealt. Okay, I'm telling you. Prove me wrong. I hope they do, but I have no belief in that right now. I just don't, because of what's at hand. What this man's talking about. Let's keep going here.
Yeah.
You know, Maduro was surrounded by, he had a couple of rings of security. I think more than 30 Cubans were killed and 40 Venezuelans. His
32
personal security detail was wiped out by them, and no American broke a nail. It's kind of an amazing operation. There was no mistake that when Donald Trump came back to office, he had Dan Cain brought back to service, because Dan Cain was an important guy in the fight on ISIS. And Donald Trump wiped out ISIS with very little fanfare, very little publicity, which was really, a significant achievement. So,
the shit that Obama
but Gary, you and I were both on the ground in Afghanistan. You know how quickly the U.S. military wiped out the Taliban and its allies. And similar thing in Iraq. In fact, it was so quick, the operation, they got to Baghdad before anyone in the Bush administration anticipated it. And so the military part of this, in a sense, people have a lot of faith in that, because they've seen the U.S. military do what, frankly,
which it does very, very well.
Arguable, no other military on earth could actually achieve that at that level. However, what concerns people now, what they're asking questions about now, where Donald Trump is now exposed, is what happens next.
What happens next is he has to partner now with the National Reconstructive Council, these people here that are willing to step up and take control of the country. And they're going to have to establish control. They're going to have to, first off, decapitate the military, and they're going to have to take the intel services down. They're going to have to build new institutions of national security in the country. And they're going to have to do it in a way where they avoid an internal conflict. And so the U.S. government will probably need to do train and assist. I know Donald Trump said that he's willing to put boots on the ground, but train and assist means usually special forces coming in and working with specific units to enhance their performance. I think you're gonna see most of the generals will be retired. They'll be fired. They'll be retired. And they'll be paid. The intel services have to go completely. They're gonna have to rebuild them, because they were instruments of terror. You cannot continue to use those. They're going to have to come up with a policy of like kind of what the South Africans did, with
the Truth and Reconciliation Commission.
Yeah, Truth and Reconciliation. If people tortured or murdered people, they'll go to prison. But if they didn't, and they did other things, administrative support, well, then they won't go to jail, but they're not going to be able to serve in the government anymore. But Truth and Reconciliation is the path forward. And so this is in the process of being designed now. I would ask people to be a little patient with the president on this. I'm still a big supporter of his and his conduct of this, and I think that Secretary Hegseth and Rubio and Tulsi Gabbard can help forge a way forward on this with the council. The president has stated that Hegseth and Rubio were going to be the leads on this. I see Gabbard as a better leader than Radcliffe. It's not even a question here, because the agency's performance has been so horrible, and it's their lack of counterintelligence efforts are just tragic, and the president is aware of this. The president's been briefed.
Gary, how much of that is deliberate? How dirty are the agency's hands here?
They are dirty. and they.
Up
So they're necks in it,
And I'm
right?
sure, you know, part of the thing, the sad thing is, I'm sure agency officers are going to watch this and say, "What is Gary Bernstein talking about? Is he gone crazy?" No, I haven't gone crazy. You guys have been penetrated so thoroughly that they weren't just collecting intelligence from the agency; they're directing the agency itself.
What about former people like John Brennan? How involved are they in what's been going on in Venezuela?
Look, I don't think John Brennan's involved at all, but John Brennan was an avowed leftist, since, you know, from 1980, because he would tell you that he worked for Gus Hall, who ran for president, who was a communist in 1980.
Communist.
How he got hired by the agency and then ascended through the ranks is another question.
Seriously.
But he's always been very, very, very
Globalist.
far on the left. And then, of course, he
SES.
left the agency after being chief of staff, you know, to George Tenet. And then he joined the Obama campaign and was probably the most leftist president we've ever had, and wound up as the deputy national security advisor and then migrated back over to the agency. And he was a disaster. John Brennan, I've heard John Brennan say the thing he's most proud of is bringing DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, to the agency. I don't think that's the best thing that's ever happened to the agency. You know, lacking, instead of measuring people on competence, he was looking for their, you know, color, race, and sexual preference mattered more than actual performance. Just bizarre.
So, Gary, one of the things that doesn't help here is that the media has also done such a poor job for so long now.
They're on the left.
Journalists
They're controlled.
journalists stop being journalists. And so people just aren't aware of how heavily involved Venezuela is with America's adversaries. They're not aware of this coalition, this alliance of
They became a
adversaries. that are
forward
working together.
operating base for our enemy right into the belly of the United States. And with the Cubans and with the Cuban skill at human recruitment, the finances from the Cartel dos Soles probably did more intel damage than any intel service has done in the history since World War II. The Cubans have done more damage just in the past 20 years than any other intelligence service in the last 75 years.
100% spot
And
on.
yet all of these, you know, intelligence reporters and, you know, national security reporters and all the people that are on this beat, you don't hear anything from them ever.
They don't know anything. Or they're on the payroll and they're look, the Cuban intel service is paying for all sorts of journalists around the world and paying the bloggers, paying all sorts of people to push a narrative. It's part of IO, information operations.
Yep.
It's shaping the narrative. It's a major thing what we do. Probably half of what you look at on the internet is paid for by one intel service or another.
So let me ask you about some of these relationships, what they really mean, because people hear, oh, okay, you know, Venezuela works closely with Iran, but what does that actually mean? Does Venezuela have bases of operations for the Iranians, logistical hubs, supplies, weapons, you know, relations in terms of weapons? Like how you know, strong and significant are these relationships?
The Venezuelans and the Iranians had all sorts of agreements going back for last 15 years. And the Venezuelans were in the process of attempting to acquire missile technology, weapons systems here that would threaten the United States. We're talking about trying to acquire medium range ballistic missiles.
From Iran.
From Iran, yes. Mm-hmm.
And how far did they get?
There's a facility there called Cabin, which is an industrial facility. They hollowed out tunnels. They were receiving some of the technology there, pieces of this. They were in process of trying to build up a system there which they could threaten the United States. Yes.
Okay.
And speaking of hollowed out tunnels, this is for Ghost. Do you remember me telling you about where my grandparents were from? How they have those two mountains that are solid granite?
Right.
Right? Yeah, those tunnels are there too. Right? I remember seeing those as a young kid. All right. They had already been abandoned at that time. All right. Now, here's the other thing too. One of the oil tankers that was flying the Russian flag that got busted in the North Atlantic. There was no oil on board this thing. Right? There were weapons in there. That's what this man is talking about right here. And where were they going? Venezuela.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Well, it's interesting that Russians are sending weapons there, and back in 18, so was the agency.
Yes, true.
Because a section of one shipment was diverted to Costa Rica
Mm-hmm.
and brought to that refugee camp. And we were called, and I said, give it to the Costa Rican government, free weapons. They want you to go in and kill Ortega. Here's translation of that. They want you and a dedicated group of young college students trained up to go in and do it. And they want you dead as well. And you've never held a weapon in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Call the Costa Rican authorities, tell them they've got free stuff.
There you go.
And that came from a group in the agency that was trying to light a fire that would have hurt President Trump in his first term.
Correct.
And
yeah, this is how
they didn't hurt it. They came and asked questions. 3, the nicest was DIA. They understood. They were okay with it. That we did what we did. It advised him in that respect. But you're talking about doing something that would have destabilized that entire region. And it would have been done incorrectly. You send in if you want them dead, you send in the guys, you send into Venezuela, except you don't have you have plausible denial with all of it. Otherwise, leave this man, who is a humanitarian, and these kids alone. Whoever the hell was behind that needs to be fired.
Agreed. All right, let's finish this off here real quick, man.
There's too many overlaps. It's making my blood boil at times.
See, that's why I said bombshell in the thumbnail. Wait till next week. Let's keep going.
And doesn't, I know, nobody wants to talk about uranium because everyone's got, PTSD from, if the moment you mention, uranium, people will talk about Iraq and yellow cake. But doesn't Venezuela have uranium deposits?
Yes, more than a decade ago, the Iranians sent a team of geologists into Venezuela and did significant studies. And I think one of my associates has got a copy of the report where they identified all the uranium and they were extracting uranium and treating uranium side by side with the Venezuelans. The Iranians have been doing that. And they have been transporting that uranium back to Iran.
For how long?
A decade.
Jesus Christ.
And can you share that document with us so we can put it on the site? People can read it for themselves.
I can't, but let me just say this, look, I served in Iranian operations many years ago, okay? And one of the big things that we did was, counterproliferation. So this isn't the first time I've done this, but I can tell your audience conclusively, Iran and Venezuela had a relationship on uranium. It was very deep. It was extraction of uranium there. A certain level of processing was done in Venezuela, and a clandestine program was set up to remove that material from Venezuela and move it back to Iran.
Now, are any of those materials moved on the ships that Donald Trump has been so interested in seizing?
Yes.
So those are not just oil tankers. There's other materials on those ships.
No, they're not. They've been moving these things for years.
Okay, so that means when the U.S. seized those 3 ships, there's a high likelihood that there's other materials, including possibly uranium, on those ships.
Yes.
Now, of course, all the people will attack anyone for talking about this, but just because, you had one situation in Iraq doesn't mean that you now then have to be silent and ignore everything everywhere else.
Look,
It's
technology is technology. The Iranians have like 700 people assigned to their embassy in La Paz, Bolivia. And there are uranium mines there. And the Iranians were literally were extracting uranium from Bolivia as well.
Well, they got to get it from somewhere.
They were getting it from Bolivia. And it's some of this was, the uranium was really kind of radioactive and dangerous. And And these were areas that were supposed to be closed off, but they were sending people in there and doing this, and people were dying, extracting it for the Iranians.
And they had
So
virtual
that's an
yellow
obvious
cake they
national
were
security
extracting.
threat. Then you have the threat of stolen elections. And as I understand it, Smartmatic, we started to talk about Smartmatic. Delcy and Jorge Rodriguez, are two of the main owners of Smartmatic. Now the ownership doesn't show up directly, right? When you look it up, they bury this behind layers and layers. And you were starting to talk about how they've hidden their ownership interest in Smartmatic.
Well, look, one of the if someone wants to do a business structure where you hide ownership, probably the best place in the world is the Netherlands. But the Netherlands owns the islands off of Venezuela, Curacao and Bonaire. So of course they have companies registered in Curacao where corporate secrecy is really tough to break through, and that's where they built the structure to hide their ownership.
And what's the name of the company where they hid it?
I don't have it off the top of my head, but it's a very complex structure, and it's got it literally showed that they had companies in like 19 countries around the world, but the ones in Curacao were the ones where they had their most sensitive ownership of Smartmatic. I think it's inside that wiring diagram is in Ralph Pizzulo's book, Stolen Elections.
You can find the diagram there. But Gary, is it possible to have free and fair elections in the United States and around the world if you don't dismantle Smartmatic and the election fraud machine that they've set up worldwide?
That machine has migrated that source code to other machines around the world. We know that the terrible thing that happened was this. Not only that they migrated the software from Smartmatic to Sequoia to Dominion and to a number of others, that we know that Smartmatic literally migrated that source code to 72 countries, and USAID and an organization, an NGO getting USAID funds, they got $6.9 billion of our tax money helped steal elections in around 72 countries around the world. So they were so clever as to create a thing called CEPS, CEPPS, and USAID put $6.9 billion in that. And out of the 70 countries that was stolen, USAID funded the elections completely in 30 of those countries.
What does CEPS stand for, Gary?
I'd have to go back. It's an acronym for for global election and integrity. It's freedom of elections. It's just everything that it's not. But it's called CEPPS. But it was found by Elon Musk's people. The Doge people found that, and then we were able to get to it from there. And then it found out that they got $6.9 billion of our tax dollars to steal elections globally.
It's unbelievable.
They used our system. It's like, look, it's the election, the Democratic Party, learned how to steal money. Like they stole $1 billion and gave it to Stacey Abrams, on a phony contract. It's just the failed candidate for governor of Georgia.
Yeah.
Of
Okay,
Georgia,
let's give you $1.2 billion for your NGO to heat homes or something. Just some crazy thing.
It feels like there's it's a miracle that there was any money to run the government because so much of it has been stolen.
Look, $9 billion for daycare centers in Minnesota. They learned how to penetrate the system. Someone told me the other day, and I haven't researched it. Find out. They said that the Somalian ambassador to the UN also owned a daycare center.
Yes, there's in fact the head of HHS, Health and Human Services, actually put out official information on that and confirmed that is true.
It's amazing.
And it's not just daycare centers, it's learning centers. It's California has the same thing with students getting tuition assistance who are not real students, they're ghost students. There's all kinds of fraud, and it's all across the country. And by the way, Ohio is emerging along with Minnesota as it's almost overtaking Minnesota according to some of the reporting, and that has a Republican governor.
Yeah, our enemies Our enemies have learned how to penetrate. The U.S. government is a multi-trillion-dollar business, and they're stolen and redirected money, and to keep themselves in power, to enrich themselves. And Elon Musk and his effort at Doge was the first good opener. We have to be more vigilant, and we can't allow them to do this. We have to, if we want to save the future, we have to fight for the future.
But Gary, Doge was basically, dismantled in many respects, right? And
but he showed
and,
us
and no one's been held accountable for what they exposed. And on top of that,
well, USAID was closed. USAID, they closed that.
Yes, but Gary, you know what happened with USAID? The office inside the State Department that was running all of that, with the guys that wrote the executive orders and so on, they were frozen out. The whole office was dismantled. They were reassigned across the State Department. And what those organizations have done is they've gone to the courts and they've had restraining orders issued against the director of foreign assistance and others who was responsible for the cuts. And all that money is just in a holding pattern. So it's still, those payments at the Treasury are still going into accounts, because what they're waiting for, they're hoping to wait out Donald Trump and wait out, all the people involved, and then that money is accruing. And when they can get those cases, those decisions,
well, Congress is going to have to act to cut that money, Ben.
Yeah, well, but Congress is not acting.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Congress is not acting, and the executive orders are not being legislated, and all of this is reversible.
When we learned about election theft, we went to the Congress and they didn't help us. They didn't help us.
So there you go.
It's awful.
And that's with the Republican majority in the House and the Senate. What's it going to look like after the midterms?
I don't know, and I'm not optimistic because they're not acting quickly enough on the election theft issues that we brought forward. We've lost a year. There's not much time left. The president needs to act in the next month or two. He needs to find executive authority that will allow us to curtail the use of machines in these states as a national security threat. The fact, though, is Nicolas Maduro has been arrested, and they have his wife. And, years ago when we arrested Rick Ames, who was a spy, they arrested his wife as well. And Ames was forced to collaborate because otherwise his wife would have gotten life in prison. So they may be able to leverage Maduro's sympathy for his own spouse to gain access to his knowledge on the machines as well. But, there's Hugo Carball in prison that's already said the machines are bad. The other general, Raul Calat, has said the machines are bad.
These are generals. These are Venezuelan high level.
One was the chief of intelligence, and another one is a general. That have both said they were stealing elections, and now you got Nicolas Maduro. So if he confesses to the fact that he's stealing elections, will people deny that? I don't think so.
3 first-hand witnesses who were directly involved.
Right, and then DOJ and the Department of Justice, doesn't want to look at it, doesn't believe them. I mean,
and is that enough to overcome the Southern District of New York and a judge who's 92 years old, who's ruled against Donald Trump every opportunity he's had, who already was retired and was brought back basically to subvert the president's authority?
It's awful. It's awful. We're in great trouble. We're in great danger in this country.
Well, what will be good signs for the American people to look for is that indictment for Delcy Rodriguez, hopefully for Jorge Rodriguez, her brother, and also indictments for other people like Diosdado.
Yeah, Diostado's already indicted.
He's already indicted, but he's not been arrested.
No, but he hasn't been arrested. But his nephew was one of the guys killed in the strikes.
Can you explain to people the significance of Diosdado and who he is?
Diosdado Cabello was a supporter of Hugo Chavez in the early years. He was a lieutenant when Chavez was a lieutenant colonel when the first attempted failed coup took place in 1993. When Chavez came to power in 1998, Diosdado Cabello was elevated up with him and has played a powerful role in his circle. He's been more of a narco than a government official. For a period of time, he was the head of this phony assembly. Now I think he's the Minister of Interior, but he is pure narco. There is no exit ramp for him. Delcy, might be accepted by the Qataris, or she might find a place in Russia or China, but no one wants Diosdado, so he's not going to flee. He's going to try to stand and fight. He had a nephew by the name of Luis Alfredo Campos Cabello, who was heavily involved at the National Consejo Electoral and Smartmatic and stealing elections, and just appeared from Venezuela, wound up in Canada. He was in the same building as the Dominion people there. He was helping them, but one floor above them, and he was overseeing their theft of elections. Well, his brother was a Sabine member. That's a member of the Civilian Intelligence Service.
Yeah.
And he was killed the other night. He was hit, his home was hit in an airstrike. So, the fight goes on here. That was probably a selective strike to send a message to that security apparatus there that we can get you. And,
Harry, I know you have to go. I know you're jumping on a plane, but last question. Do you think there are a lot of very nervous people right now, knowing that Maduro is in custody, knowing that
there are a number of people in the United
a lot?
States, yes, who have been conducting espionage, who are very, very nervous at the moment because Nicolas Maduro knows he has cards to play against senior officials in the United States.
Yes, he does.
Who have been spying on behalf of the Cubans and himself.
Yep.
Nicolas Maduro's only hope is that some left-wing government wins the United States and he gets pardoned years from now. But it looks like he's getting a one-stop prison, ride to a prison cell for years. I will say this: we had captured his business manager years ago, and Alex Saab and the Biden administration let him go.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
Free man.
A lot of people
They
die
didn't
in prison.
interrogate him. They let him go. Alex Saab.
Yep. I know that to be a fact. They let his ass walk completely, and he's out there. And I'll tell you something else based on what he said. Carvajal, okay, who was the Venezuelan senior, he was like Ratcliffe. He had that position, okay, in their intelligence apparatus. That guy is in jail currently right now. He's actually in the same jail that Maduro is in, okay? Carvajal is the one that wrote a letter to Donald Trump exposing the names of sitting members in our administration, both on the left and on the right. And this, you can find this, it's out there on X. So all you got to do is look for it. I have verified this to be actual fact. The names that are on that list, you should look at them.
Is that the list I sent you that day and you checked it out?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because
That is legit.
I knew that was, it appeared legit to me when I looked at it, and then I immediately sent it to you and to other people.
There is one name on that list, though, that I have not been able to verify yet, but I'm currently working on it. Okay. Who gets PAC money. Okay. PAC money. And that PAC money is coming from Cartel de los Soles, and it has to do with oil, sanctioned oil. Okay. And that name is Johnson, the speaker. I had not been able to verify that. I've not been able to.
I'm sure you'll find it's probably on.
Yeah. But that's one of the names.
All you have to do is watch their behavior.
Yeah.
That's all you have to do.
Let's finish this off, and we'll go for closing comments or questions. Here we go.
Because they had sources, they had people. The Democrats let the business manager for the Cartel del Sol walked free a few years ago. Just crazy.
Unbelievable. And then they opened the border and invited them in and worked with them. But I mean, they installed them in the 2020 election, so they owed them.
Yes, they did. And that's why they didn't close the border, and they collaborated with the cartel, and they didn't pursue action against them because the Democratic Party, the leaders of the Democratic Party, knew that the Cartel del Soles could deliver another victory, but unfortunately they didn't.
Well, the cartel is their army, is it not, Gary? That's the army of the deep state.
They were shock forces of the left in the United States.
Mm-hmm. And still are.
Yes, they are.
Okay, well, we will definitely be staying in touch with you, Gary, and getting updates. keeping a close eye on the situation in Venezuela. Thank you so much. I don't know how you're still alive. You must have the hand of God on you at this point.
Great. Thank you very much. You too. We've walked the thing round in a lot of places at the same time. So God bless
We
you,
have.
Laura. Thank you.
Have. Thank you so much, Gary. It's always an education to listen to you, and really appreciate all that you're doing. Look forward to speaking to you again. Thank you to everybody for watching. You know what to do. Like, share, subscribe. Make sure this gets out to as many people.
All right, folks, there you have it, right? It's like drinking from a freaking fire hose, right? Yeah, it is. Next week is going to be another bombshell of a stream where Cartel de los Soles is going to be exposed. That's another drop from Laura. So yeah, Ghost, we definitely need to get on a conference call with her, because I'd like the opportunity to be able to do a one-on-one with her. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
So Mike, give me some thoughts, brother. You've been quiet.
Oh yeah, no. I think bringing up the whole point of our vote system, right? What's coming up here this year in 2028? There really isn't a lot of time. It's going from electronic voting machines to paper ballots, and restructuring all that is a monumental task. And so I think time is of the essence. And I think that's probably one of the only things that's going to really save us regarding the vote, at least. I love Laura Logan. My only complaint is she mispronounced Quality Learning Center instead of, Learning Center. That's not how they pronounced it.
Well, remember, she's South African, so her English is kind of funny.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but I mean, it definitely, you can see how the web is, there's a huge web. It's a lot involved, and it's very deep. And it's very good information.
All right. Ghost, you want to give us some closing comments? Or hey, let's do this. Well, let's do 5 minutes. Okay. We're just going to do 5 minutes, and we've gone a little bit long, but it's totally okay. That's why we're here. Okay. Because I had to get this out. So I got to some Q&A. If you guys have any closing questions for the panel here, myself, Mike, or Ghost, fire away.
I'll just say one thing, and then we can answer a couple of questions. Doge, if you allow Doge to be dismantled, you guarantee there was something to replace it. The best tool you have to map all of the corruption, all of it, is AI. Think Palantir.
Yeah.
Used correctly, you'll have a complete map of it, and then you can build strategy and tactics to dismantle it, and then to divorce yourself from another aspect of it. And I just feel that drastic and let's say upsetting for the population and turbulent measures have to be taken. And they can be. Because he's surrounded by lawyers, but they're typical lawyers. They're sharp, big practices. They don't know how to reach the sovereign layer. They don't. The ones that do, you don't know their names. I know a few of them, and they keep governors and senators and congressmen out of trouble, and they don't even know how it's done. They just know they're not in trouble, though they should be. The same tools can be used against them. There is no one that I know of, other than a certain individual in the Pentagon, working on that issue from that angle. And that's where my group has a lot to offer. And they need it. They need that information. They need a series of long briefings. A lot of the things we talked about, Armando, we really just skimmed the surface of. There's a lot more to it.
Oh, yeah.
They're not utilizing it. They're trapped in this web of a system that we have now. So pragmatically, you have to work through that. But at the same time, you can circumvent. And I'm, again, using broad strokes in my words, but I think most people get what I'm saying. I don't want to go into too much detail, but if you look at something like Palantir, that's what it's for.
Yep. I agree.
And you have, that way you have no public scrutiny and bullshit from the subversives in this country being thrown out on through the media in every which way, and every possible route, from bloggers to films to obvious everyday false and misleading reports. You don't have to deal with that drama. Let the systems and the private company handle it. And I'll just say, I believe that's what's being done.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I suppose,
Go ahead, Mike.
Sir.
No,
I was
no,
just
go
going to
ahead.
say, we were, that one part I was supposed to talk about last time around when I was on chat, it's kind of unrelated, but it's for the future events and whatnot. I had a discussion with an individual I've been friends with for a long time, and this individual is currently still in the military, officer, higher ranked, and some information I kind of got that essentially, all the stuff about the QRFs and whatnot that we've heard about. SecDef had ordered that what was in January, every state had to have a QRF for National Guard. That is not just for civil unrest. That is also for special operations and federal agency support.
Yeah.
And then also there's been a quiet hush with the NGB in higher level. Essentially, it's been very quiet, and it's hard to get a hold of people. There's been lots of purging and a lot of rearranging. So I think the things that we have been waiting for are quickly coming to be, and everything's falling into place.
Because the military does have lawful responsibility through civil affairs, judge, advocate general, all of that. A lot of the DNA of their capabilities has been taken out over the generations of the last century on purpose. But in reality, they can take charge of the bar. They can dismantle the bar if they wish through civil affairs. There's a lot of things that are the way they are that people are not aware of in general. These tools are going to be used, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, they have to be. All right, gentlemen. We're going to go to back channel here real quick just to finish this off. Folks, if you enjoyed and got value out of the stream tonight, I know we went long, a little over 3 hours, I guess, or something like that, which is fine. I usually run marathons anyway. As opposed to 55 minutes worth of fear porn. Did I say that? Yeah, I did. Anyway, if you got value out of the stream today, please drop a comment down below. Let us know, or let me know what you guys thought about the stream. Just leave a comment down below. Like, subscribe, follow, share this with as many people as you can, far and wide. Over on YouTube also as well. I would greatly appreciate it. I'm trying to get up to the point on YouTube where I can start monetizing over there. But again, it's 4,000 watch hours and it's 1,000 followers or subscribers. So, and I know it's YouTube, but again, there's a lot of work. There's a lot of research that goes into putting these broadcasts together. And it's a one-man show operation right now. Mike, thank you so much. So much, man. I am grateful for the work that you've done to help out here for the channel. It will not go unrecognized. I promise you that. And you are now officially a member of the Table of Truth. So awesome. I expect to have you back.
Yay.
With pleasure.
I really do. where time permits. And for all of you new folks that Mike tapped you guys on the shoulder, thank you. I'm grateful for the follow and for you guys participating here, in the chat tonight. Next week, okay, just a reminder, next week, make sure you scan the QR code that you see up on screen if you wish. That'll give you access over to my Discord. Or, and if you have trouble getting in there, no problem. Just send Mike a message. He'll reach out to me and I'll, all I need is an email address and I'll give you full access to the Discord. We're trying to build a community over there of like-minded thinkers. Okay. And that's where all of the posts, all of the important information, all of the latest drops, any announcements that are made coming here from the channel, that's where they go. All right. Or you can always just drop me an email too. You could do that as well. All of the links are there provided. Make sure that you do not miss next week. Next week is going to be a follow-up to what we just saw, also from Laura, and a Venezuelan patriot, soon-to-be American citizen patriot, who is going to blow the freaking lid. You thought this guy was good tonight? Wait till next week. He's going to blow the lid wide open, and you are going to be shell-shocked when you find out what's going on. You're going to hear stuff here that you're not going to hear anywhere else. Okay. So once again, I appreciate you guys stopping by. I know we went long, but it's just the way we roll here.
Hey, buddy, one quick thing.
Yeah.
Loves Her Girl said it will take martial law to implement these changes, most likely, and he has the power to do it with the stroke of a pen at the proper time.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And he can go two ways on this too. He can go two ways on this. He can declare the Insurrection Act, one. He can declare also a state of emergency and apply that on a state-by-state basis, not necessarily the entire country. And number three, yeah, martial law could be a thing. And if and when we do ever get to that point, understand the lights are going to go out, folks. The lights are going to go out. There's something here big is going to come, and it's going to happen before the midterms, whether it be financial, whether it be infrastructure, whether it be violence. I don't know, but something is going to come. So, as always, I always say this, the only thing that you and I can do, right, is prepare. Prepare, prepare. I can't state that enough. Make sure you got long-term food, water, ammo, firearms to protect and defend your home, okay? Communications also as well. We all saw what happened with Verizon. Make sure you have alternative means of communication in case that goes down again. You can stay in touch with friends and family, right? Just to make sure that everything is the way it's supposed to be, right? Every time you leave your home, make sure you leave strapped, keep your head on a swivel, all right? Keep your powder dry. And above all, God bless. We will catch you guys on the next one. Take care.